Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at the Smite Pro League. This week, Frost and I, your host Apam, are joined by two special guests. We have caster extraordinaire Myflin, who joins us, and former SPL mid, current SEC mid superstar mid laner from Belt Slap. Zyrhoes is here as well.
Whoa. This was way better.
Hey, I said caster extraordinaire, right?
Hold on, I'm gonna redo mine. Former SPL jungler, console world champion, and current caster. Boom.
Sure.
Got
so
it.
long ago.
Hey, shut up about that.
Be sure to stick around for my interview with the king himself, the jungler for Radiance Adapting, joins me. But first, we had a pretty short week of games with some postponed sets. So let's get started with the first set of the week, which was Ghost versus United. I think all the sets this week were very quick. Especially this Ghost vs. United set. 26 minutes for the first one. A little bit longer for the second one, but I think Ghost handily took care of this United team. What are you guys' thoughts initially on this Ghost vs. United set?
That was like the biggest support diff there. It was literally PBM running down Gino.
Yeah.
To the point where Gino had to build the most defensive Kuzembo I've ever seen in my life. If you're going to do that, you draft like a Sobek or something. Just not Kuzen. I don't know what that was for him.
Sure.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it also came down to solo lane. United, right? They've got Baskin. They picked him up. They expected him to come in as this absolute powerhouse out of the short lane.
Mm-hmm.
And we really haven't seen him really diff a solo lane. We always talk about the intangibles on the cast. Baskin's a shot caller. He helps out a lot with Scream. And we got to really hope that that's the case because he is getting absolutely bodied right now. There was a point in that set in particular where me and Finch went absolutely off on the cast. Baskin is walking down Panda Cat on his own back camps, on Panda Cat's back camps.
Yep.
Just W-keying at this man. He takes 40 auto attacks to the face. Me in my head, all right, any second now. Master's Will, 72 transformations, Jiggy Bang. Nothing happens. Baskin just absolutely dies. He eats garbage. I can only assume Panda Cat was laughing at him.
Yeah.
And I just had no clue. And from there, I never saw Baskin have another impact on a team fight. It just really feels like he's struggling.
That's just because ADCs are so OP though, man. Like, I'm telling you, it's the best role in the game right now. Like, they need to nerf the ADC. Like, every day I stream, I keep saying it, like, the ADC actors are so OP, man. Like, so I can't blame Baskin for that.
Yeah, Atalanta's bow is in a nuts spot right now. We got
what about Obo? 2.1k gold.
Yeah. It also seems like any ADC build, like you can build crit if they don't build Spectral, you can build this attack speed build, you can even build like the power build, like Trans is not dead on Hunters either. It seems like the build diversity has really exploded, especially since the mid-season patch.
And
yeah, you can literally build anything.
The same two Hunters over and over.
Sure, same two Hunters, but the builds can vary, I feel like, game to game.
Yeah, if you've got Jingwei on your team, maybe Barracuda builds a little bit of crit. If you've got Zapman building with the Berserker's Shield, which is just another version of the attack speed build.
Sure.
I think right now with the meta leaning a little bit more so towards a strong front line with supports almost acting as a secondary jungler.
Frontline versus ADCs in the game, sure, man.
Yeah, now we got kin size, attack speed. Like, you're a chainsaw come late game as ADC. But that role and all the players inside that role, I'm looking at Zapman, I'm looking at Barracuda, Panda Cat. They love complaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why every single year, ADCs are getting stronger and stronger and stronger, while mid laners and junglers are kind of falling by the wayside just a little bit.
You know,
mid laners usually start pretty strong in the start of the year, but then ADCs complain so much that they're weak and mid laners are strong. So like at the end of the year, ADCs are super OP and mid laners are just like probably the worst role almost.
Sure. I'm just gonna channel my inner Zapman and just say nerf Thorns, you know?
Yeah, we need a nerf Thorns again.
I agree with that. actually. So.
It's because Thorns is so unfun. You don't want to get punished for landing your own abilities.
Yeah,
exactly.
I worked hard and I got punished.
Yep.
It's like Nike in an item, though. You try to fight back, just another middle finger comes up. It's over for you.
Hey, at least we got Thorns, or not Thorns, Sunder for Nike nowadays. Or even Ankh kind of deals with her a little bit.
That is true, yeah. We do.
You mentioned, though...
Yeah, go ahead, Frost.
We've got more of a frontline meta right now. Tell me about Sam and his Circat. Is a very tanky Circat that he went there.
It is. I think that it's kind of a remnant of Season 4 back when Circat was truly meta. We saw that she was getting her most effectiveness out of getting that tankiness online so that you can dive deep into the back line and find the ultimate. Because the true counter to Circat is it's the old Arachne where she sits on your back and you could just land 30 auto attacks in 2 seconds because ADCs can attack 2.5 times a second, or I don't know, drop a Kraken on them. So you need the Circuit to be able to survive that and set up for the rest of the team, which is why we're starting to see that build come back to fruition.
I think also like the Suket, because when he did play Suket, it was his second game, I think, and it was against their Toff mid lane as well. And Toff has never been that good at killing tanks. And then like if you have like a really tanker, like a bruised jungler as well, and Toff is really bad at getting dove as well, and Suket is really good at diving, obviously. And if she doesn't have to worry about that much damage coming out, like obviously she have to worry about the Rama. I think Snoopy played Rama that game, but like that's the only thing he really has to worry about, because the Toff won't deal that much damage to him for the most part. So I think the Suket in that game is kind of good.
Yeah, he even went Girdle too.
Yeah, he did, to make up for it. On top of it, her passive does percentage damage, and it's true damage. Do you think we're going to start leaning for that, though? More of like a hybrid, why not all 5 dive? A full dive meta.
Because you're lacking so much damage with that, but we do see it. United does that occasionally. You'll see them run a bunch of frontliners. It's especially when Hurrywin wants to go for the Yanis, because he's acting as this solo agent in the backline who is untouchable. You can't chase that man down, so he could just kind of play this solo agent around the sides while the rest of the team is W keying. It makes it much harder for you to focus in on the Yanis. So I think United has adapted that.
Yeah, I think United is one of the teams that do like to play those like heavy dive comps, and I think Janus, as you said, is like one of the few mages that actually work. Because if you think about it, if you run a jungle, support, and mid, that's like Kuzenbo, for example, is really popular in SPL, which is kind of weird to me, because like he's a full-on dive. He doesn't peel at all, right?
Yeah,
and then you very rarely pick a solo laner to peel either. So like if you have a Kuzenbo support and then a solo laner diving, like your backline is usually left on their own. So I think for the SPL meta, I feel like Janus should be a really good pick for the most part. But then you always have the thing where your ADC, like Cupid is a highly valued pick now, right? And Cupid is not that good at surviving on his own. Like if your whole team is diving, and if you're playing Cupid and you're getting dove by a jungler and a solo, and you're probably just gonna die, right? So I think the ADCs you need to play in a dive comp is probably like a Rom or Ying or something that can survive a lot or even help with the dive a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of weird in that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Heimdall kind of fits that bill as well, just the Bifrost being so safe and having CC immunity on ultimate, which, that's why we see Zapman playing those gods as well. It's just he's one of the more aggressive ADCs in the league. Even though we do consider them safer, I think the safer your hunter pick is, the more aggressive you're allowed to play, which is why we see this Jingwei coming through. Ho Yi's been getting a little bit of a resurgence as well through Barracuda. So I think it definitely speaks to your point there, Zeros.
And Nary, a Chernobog. He's like the safest hunter in the game, and we see him anywhere.
Chernobog is literally like the perfect hunter if you want to run a dive comp, I think. Like Janus, Chernobog, and then if you remember last year when I was a PK, the Jor mid is pretty good at diving as well. That's a substitute for Janus.
Your mid. Why no Baba Yaga mid?
She's not very good at diving. Like you can't get into the backline.
Because nobody builds a tanky.
Yeah, you build her tanky though, she'll have Cthulhu issues where now she's a big house and ADC's
I don't know
absolutely
about
blast.
Yeah, I don't know about tank.
It's gonna come through. I promise. She get Warlocks, Thebes. Oh man, she just stacks everything.
Sure. I know you guys are mentioning this dive sort of meta that we're in right now, and I asked Variety about this a couple weeks ago when I had the chance to interview him, and we talked a little bit about, and I don't know if this made the episode, but it sure made the extended cut. We talked a little bit about teams trying to pick maybe some counter dive comps, and I especially brought it up in the case of Bobby picking Sylvanas, which is kind of like the ultimate sort of counter dive support, right? Because you basically expect yourself to be by your own carries to peel whatever dive happens to them when you're playing Sylvanas, because you're a slow tree and you can't dive anyway. Is that something sort of like the next evolution you think is going to happen as we sort of get towards playoffs and worlds?
I mean, that's kind of what's going on in SML now, like in EU SML at least. Like, obviously, our meta is not the same as SPL right now. Like, when I look at a lot of the SPL drafts, I think, like, what the hell are they doing, you know? Because, like, as I said, there's a lot of Kuzenbo support, and then you have a lot of dive, and then they still pick the Persephones and, like, the Cupid ADC, so they have no peel for the backline. They have, like, a dive comp with, like, strong carries that can't really carry because they have no peel, you know? So, like, I think it's kind of weird the way a lot of teams drafting, but yeah, I don't know, man.
I think as far as anti-dive goes, we saw Ghost start to recently pick up the Khepri.
Sure,
And
yeah.
they used it as anti-dive to enable further dive. We'll see PBM revive Panda Cat in the back line and then immediately dash forward into the enemy team. So whoever's diving Panda Cat is now left far behind the entirety of the engagement. And you just kind of drop ship them into the front line. But as far as true anti-dive comps go, I think Radiance recently has really been looking to do that with Aurora going towards its Terra pick, which is dog awful, by the way. I don't even think she's won yet.
Sure.
So I think it really does come down to this. Right now, with how itemization works and the pace of the game, at least in the SPL, it's not about how well you're able to withstand a dive. We even see that Sanguine, the team that used to be, all right, we're going to bear through it, make it to 25 minutes and group up at 5, have shifted their own internal meta to try and match the meta of the SPL. It's how do we dive harder than we're getting dove? Because it's just two unstoppable forces coming at each other every single time around these Dance of the Fire Giants. And the only real counter to it, I think, is this slight focus towards healers we've been seeing. Ra, after a Deity, occasionally Hell, where you can survive the initial dive, heal up, and then re-engage. I think that's really the only answer.
I don't agree with that 100% at least, because I do think like heavy dive comps, I think it's kind of easy to play against. Like you just need a solid comp, right? As I said, there's so many strong carries now. If you have a strong mid laner, there's so many strong mid laners. You have Hera, you have Persephone. There's so many good mid laners you can play. Like even the Ra right now, in my opinion, is really strong. And then you have so many strong ADCs, and ADCs are so OP, man. So in my opinion, you should just protect your carries rather than diving, because if you can keep your carries alive, that's how you win, in my opinion. So, like, for me, it's kind of weird to see SPL drafting so much dive in rather of the, like, just have people protecting your carries instead, you know, because they're so strong. Like, you have the Rama, so broken. Strong. Cupid, Hera, there's so many strong carry picks. Like, if you keep them alive, they will carry you, you know. So, like, for me, have your soul laner and jungler diving, or you can have your jungler kind of a diver or peeler. Like there's a lot of jungle picks, like Erlang, for example. He can dive, he can also peel pretty well. And then your solo laner, I think, should always be diving. But then just have a good support at them. That's like you see in EUSML, like Solbeck is a really big pick, you know, because he can initiate the fight and then he can go straight back to the backline and help his carries, you know. But like then you have picked like in SPL, like Kusen and stuff, where only dives and can't really peel at all. So I think it's kind of weird. I think the counter against a heavy dive comp is just peel for your carries, keep them alive, and then you'll kill the enemy frontline so fast.
Sure, yeah, but that's easier said than done, right? Especially when it's like Ghost Gaming diving you, when Sanford Soccer and PBM are walking at your backline. It just feels like it's so stifling, especially when they get their signature picks or even early game aggression. Like with the level 3 can't coming through the duo lane in particular, he's just shutting down the Hunter in the early game and then keeping pressure, jamming it down solo while you're already behind in duo, forcing the team to retain their attention on the opposite side of the map so they can't create a comeback mechanic for their own Hunter. It seems like it really is like who can establish the pace and force the enemy team to respect it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like Ghost is a little bit different than any other team in the whole world right now, even SPL or any SML teams I've ever seen, because they utilize the early game so well. So I kind of don't, for them, I feel like it doesn't even matter what draft they have, really. Like, they manage to make it work anyway. If they have a strong point at any point, like, it's usually fine. Okay, has, like, pressure in solo lane, and Sam for Soccer plays so well around it. It's like, they make it work that way, where they snowball. It's like, I think Ghost is a little bit different, but, like, yeah, I don't know, man. I think if people drafted better against their comp and just held out in the early game, I feel like you could definitely beat their playstyle.
Sure. I know you mentioned... Go ahead, Frost.
I was going to say, but that style that you mentioned, wouldn't the closest team to that style, wouldn't they be Space Station? And they can't handle Ghost.
Yeah, I mean, Space Station can't handle Ghost. I'm willing to cede that point because Ghost is the only team that's able to beat Space Station consistently or at all. But I think that's just a poor matchup for them. I think it's a glaring weakness in Space Station only against Ghost that their early game is a little bit lacking. But as far as a late game team fight or mid game team fight or the ability to fight from 3,000-4,000 gold down at like 10 minutes, I think SSG has that in spades. And it's a conversation I had with Finch recently where we agreed that we both think that SSG is a shoe-in for finals at Worlds. But we don't know for sure that Ghost is going to be able to get there. If Ghost does get up against SSG in the finals, I think we're going to have a Ghost World Championship. But they're not guaranteed to find their way there because other teams are capable of shutting down Ghost.
Just a funny thing I want to add, like the way Space Station is drafting, because like you see, iRefri is usually not on heavy dive support, right? It's usually like on this. he's played a lot of Solbeck and like this Ganesh and like this kind of supportive support. The ways SSG plays, that's like the meta in Europe pretty much right now. I feel like the way they play, because like they usually play a strong late game soul laner like Amaterasu, Guan Yu or something like that. They can dive, but they can also play back. I feel like SSG plays, the meta SSG plays is very similar to how we play in Europe right now.
Sure.
Agreed. It's distinctly European. I think they're one of the few like layovers from the SPL split where Rapper has really been set in his way on how he thinks the game should be played. Yeah. And power to him, it absolutely looks correct when you're able to get results like this so consistently. And I think that's why it's such a treat to watch SSG play. Like, we make the joke vintage Barracuda when Barracuda pops off, but SSG is a vintage team. They're playing Season 5, and it's working in Season 7.
Sure. Any final things about this Ghost vs. the United set before we move on towards the Renegades versus Obey?
Let me look at the... I have the stats pulled up here. I know Harrowwind kind of popped off on Toff in the second game, right? It did a lot of damage, yeah.
Insane. There was one team fight where he put out like 10,000 on his own. Everyone on Ghost was 10%. Right? Yep.
That's a lost fight. And then they were kind of holding back, but then he dashed in, I think, and went for like a hero play to kill off, I think it was Sam or something, and then he died and they just lost the game. But
yeah, I think he had to go for that though, with everyone being so low and it was only him.
I'm pretty sure.
Who else was
Could they not just
there?
have held back and defended the Phoenixes? I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. It's hard to say, especially considering like how late in the game was. It was like 50 seconds left on all of his team responding as well. So I think that had they allowed them into the Titan room, it would have been very hard to stop that dive from happening or even the Titan from falling. Yeah, so he had to like push it while he had the lead.
All right, well, moving on then. The Renegades versus Obey. Another 2-0. I think you'll see a theme this week in 2-0s in the league. But Renegades really looking strong. Obey kind of faltering in this one, I think. You know, the tanks stay the same for Renegades in both these sets, and Barra, I think, had a very good set. You know, we see a lot of Guan Yu, I think, was the solo of choice for Variety. Is that just because he's one of the best divers? You know, that ult does a lot of work, I think, if you're trying to dive the backline. What are you guys' thoughts on Renegades versus Obey?
I think on Guan Yu specifically, I think like he's one of the solo lanes that can do both. He's really good at diving, obviously. If you have targets that doesn't have dashes and stuff, like you jump on the horse and you just go to town, you know. But he can also play really well with the backline with his healing and stuff. So like, I think Guan Yu is pretty solid. I'm not 100% sure how his laning phase is against some of the picks, like if he has pressure or not. But I think his pressure in solo lane is pretty good now. In EU as a mal, at least, Guan is a pretty popular pick now. Like a lot of people play it and they have a lot of success with it. So just for Guan Yu, I think it's a solid pick right now.
Yeah, I can agree with that completely. As well as just having that additional healing within elongated fights around objectives is super useful. The issue with Obey, and I think it became very glaring in this set, is that some of the players, and I hate doing it because he gets so much trash talked on him already, but Inbound in particular, not having certain gods within his god pool is such an issue because it allows teams like Renegades to kind of control the picks and bans. We've only got to see Inbound play Yamoja 1 week, and it was awful. I think I was on the desk for that week, and I literally said, I don't want him to see him play this pick ever again. He's incapable of it. He's only taking it so that the other team doesn't have it. You might as well dedicate a ban towards it. And then we get into that set where Variety picks up the Guan Yu, and we know that Inbound has a very good Ymir, who has a very strong counter matchup in a Guan Yu as well. Cavalry Charge is very easily counterable by that wall because the turning radius is so steep. If he goes in, you juke immediately towards your own teammate. Ymir drops a wall. All of a sudden, Guan Yu's ultimate is worthless. And he just kind of ignores that counter matchup and goes to whatever feels like at that time. I don't know. I think that the main weakness of Obey right now is the duo lane. In general, just the support sometimes will either do par for the course or he'll be the reason they lose. I've never seen a game that has been 100% inbound diffed. And I think that's a huge issue as well, just matched up with the fact that Wowie in particular is one of the most passive hunters in the league. Wowie will never lose you a game. He'll also never win you a game. He'll have good stats if his team is winning, but it's almost always off the back of Sino and Wolfie out of that mid lane if they're able to find their combos together. And I think that when your route to victory is so one note like that, teams can really hone in and make sure that it doesn't really work out for you. Obey needs to diversify how they want to win the games.
Yeah, I think Obey didn't they have a couple of weeks when they played, I think Wolfie played a lot of Raw.
Yeah.
Sino played a lot of Erlang, and they had they played really well and they won some games, like even against some top teams, I'm pretty sure. But But then again, going back to the Ymir pick, which I think is kind of interesting, I think he has a spot. Sometimes it's a very situational pick. Like if you want to like last pick your support for some reason, I don't know why you would ever want to do that. But like if you do, then sure, he can probably have good matchups. But like I feel like they kind of forced the Ymir pick pretty early for the most part, right? Like he really likes it, like he thinks it's really good or whatever.
He
but
does
like,
think it's very good.
Yeah, looking at it now, like when he picked it, he was against Persephone and Hu Yi, which is two. Like I think for Ymir to be good, you need to be able to wall off at least. I count the jungle as a carry, right? So like ADC, mid, jungle are the carries. I think you have to at least be able to wall off 2 carries that can't get through the wall. But I mean, he's against Persephone and Hu Yi, which both can just get through the wall without any issues, right? He's against the Erlang jungle, which he can wall off, sure. That's not too bad. But I mean, I just don't think it's enough. And then even when Ymir has a good matchup where you can wall off, say you're against Hera and Cupid, for example, like 2 carries you can both wall off. Even then, they can both turn on you very fast, and like you can kill an Ymir so fast. So even when you think Ymir has a good matchup, I think most of the time you can just blow him up anyway. So I don't personally think Ymir is a very good pick. Obey seems to love it for some reason, but
I can give
it's
you
kind of
some
weird that they prioritize it so
What you
much.
laughing about there, Myflin?
I can give you some insight into why Obey love it, because I was able to ask Inbound about that specifically. I want to say maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was able to interview him for my show, and he was just very adamant that the wall is OP, and if you're able to get a good wall, it basically changes the team fight in a way that can really swing towards your favor. And he thinks that no matter, you can get pressure in the early game, none of that matters. Late game walls are some of the most OP things you can do in Smite in terms of both team fights and also sieging and things like that. So he was really just focusing on the utility of the wall from Ymir more than some of the other things. And I think what doesn't hurt him is the fact that in the early game, he can still provide pressure. His clear is very good, very safe as well, I feel. So that was what Bobby said.
I think it depends on when he gets picked.
I agree with that too.
He also went 0-6 on it last week, though. So I think that him saying that he shouldn't be concerned about the early game is the worst mindset that Obey can have in general, because early game is the only thing that they have going for them as a team. Coming from the biggest Obey stan on the planet, literally wearing their hoodie right now. It all comes from love. I absolutely love Bobby. But that's such a weird mindset to have, especially considering that the Frostbite pass
I don't think it's that he's
so strong in the early.
Sure, I don't think it's that he's giving up the early game. It's just that it's not a negative. Where there are some supports where the early game is for sure a detriment to you, where you sort of have to pay passively. He said that Ymir doesn't have that negative, but also has this huge upside with the wall in the late game.
Yeah, he said that, and then he goes 0-6 with 480 DPM. So
I think he just left out the caveat, because I agree with everything he said. It's just Ymir's a last pick or a niche pick kind of thing. This fearlessness that Ymir players have, I don't know where they get it. You want to have a successful Ymir, you have to play like an absolute coward.
Agreed.
Around your team, always huddling together. I'm talking 4 roaming around waiting for them to walk through a certain alleyway, then you wall that off and you go. And you also have to keep in mind that, yes, maybe you did wall them off, but now you're going to die. I've seen a lot of their Ymirs do that, where it's hey, I got him here, and then they burned him down before anyone could show up.
Yeah, and as I talked about a little bit earlier as well, I'm talking about supports. You usually want a support that can peel for your carries, right? Like Ymir's peel potential is very limited, right? Because you usually use your wall to for the enemy team, to catch them off, and all he really has is his freeze, which is kind of easy. You can juke it with abilities for the most part, and if not, usually a beat. So it's not a good peeler. He doesn't really dive either. All he really has got going for him is his wall, and yeah, maybe if you can wall the whole enemy team off, then sure. But if not, I don't know, man. I don't like the pick at all.
Sure.
I really like the space control that Ymir offers, though, especially in fights that do come down to a range. Say there is a Persephone on the enemy team, you might not be able to wall off the god herself, but now Grasp of Death is going to have to choose its spots a lot better.
Sure.
If anyone does use their jump in an engagement ever, then all of a sudden you've got a very easy target to lock down, especially in Season 7, the map in particular. The jungle lanes are so much more narrow nowadays. That's almost a direct buff to Ymir. And I think that his peel got a major buff with the Ymir change being able to get rid of the wall. So now you can throw up the wall, find a freeze. If they beads it, okay. If it feels like they're about to turn on you, evaporate your wall instantly. You get I would say about at least 20% CDR in a standard Guardian build, so you should be able to get that back up very quickly. And being as tanky as you are, with Stone of Guying being as meta as it is right now, you should at least be able to get 2 or 3 walls off in a late game team fight if you're playing it properly. So I think that Ymir can certainly be very good, but it is very matchup dependent, and people do often forget how exploitable his early game is when you're playing a mobile Guardian and Ymir being so easy to avoid that freeze. If you ever walk into the jungle and you make eye contact with the enemy jungler, you're probably just dead if you don't have your entire team around you, which is why we see this huge disparity where either Ymir will pop off incredibly or we'll have games like we had last week. But I think it's certainly a pick that can work out on the top end. Whereas on the other hand, Awesome Jake 408 on the Renegades has some meta picks that I don't necessarily agree with either. And he also has some of the same glaring weaknesses as Inbound. I haven't seen Awesome Jake perform well in a Yemoja ever. And that's a huge weakness right now. I often say that Yemoja is the best god in the game, full stop, no debate. So not having that in your team comp against teams that absolutely can play it, which is all of the top 4 teams right now, I think that makes you hugely exploitable in the draft. And while we're talking about Guardians that I don't think should be picked almost ever, Fafnir is trash, okay?
What are you saying, dude?
This god is bad, okay? You jump in, you turn into a dragon, all of a sudden you're dead.
They're bad, bro.
Someone can't hit their hammers.
He is not bad, man. He's not bad, man. That's not true. That's not true. I don't think he's a top pick, but he's definitely good, I think.
He's very good at like getting into spaces where he shouldn't be. I think though, so the Ymir, I think he needs one more buff, not needing line of sight to place that wall. Turning it, sure, that'd be fun, but just not needing the line of sight.
I need to talk about this Fafnir because I personally think Fafnir is like, he's not the best at peeling. He's not the best at diving, but like he's kind of good at everything. It's like mediocre, and like he's very hard to kill. That's what's really good about Fafnir, in my opinion. And if Fafnir is ever ahead, or if he's playing in a team that has like map pressure at the point, like he can be so annoying because he can follow the enemy jungler around, and like if the enemy team ever tries to collapse on him, it's so hard to kill him, right? Yeah. Like where if there's a Ymir trying to follow an enemy jungler around the jungle, he'll just get CC'd and die, right? But like Fafnir has so much mobility. I think Fafnir is still good. Obviously, he brings so much for like bursting objectives, like having good objective damage, and objective burst is super important as well in team comp. So I think Fafnir is definitely not bad. I think there's better support, but what you said about Fafnir kind of hurt my feelings.
Look, to go further into my point on Fafnir, I have a similar view on him as I do Cthulhu, in that Fafnir and Cthulhu are both gods that I consider
no. That's
harder
that's
gods.
Not the same, man.
When you're already winning, Fafnir looks amazing. His dive becomes immaculate. You can no longer deal with Fafnir dive if a team's already ahead. The same with Cthulhu. But from even or behind, I'd almost want just about any other Guardian because they offer you so many more comeback mechanics in team fights. Khepri Geb can initiate a fight incredibly well. Or
they can't initiate. No, I don't think Khepri can initiate a fight as well as Fafnir can initiate from range with like one stun into like a mage. Say you have a raw or like any range, like you can burst, like you can poke a tank or anything. Just with one hammer, you can poke. Like I think Fafnir has. I don't know, man. I don't want to because Cthulhu has no CC. You can't compare Cthulhu support.
Cthulhu outside ult is trash. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, sure. I think Cthulhu support is. You should never play that. But like Cthulhu has no CC. Fafnir does have CC, and like if you can hit your dragon jump into stun, you'll literally stun someone for like 10 seconds. So like he is good, but obviously he is like you need mechanics, which I guess a lot of support players might lack. But like if you can hit your abilities on Fafnir,
I swear it's bugged. It's not me. It's the hammer.
Yeah, Fafnir's got to be bugged, right? There's no way hammers are getting this so consistently. Yeah.
I mean, in season 3, there was a bug where you could, like, the dragon jump, it wouldn't do anything.
I do remember that.
I remember that too.
No, it was a normal jump, no? When it was in dwarf form and jump people, it wouldn't do damage. I know that was last season. We had I remember Emilse was complaining about that. Like, if you jumped in spot pretty much, it wouldn't do damage or something like that.
Emilse complaining? No way. No way.
But I think that's really what it came down to, seeing as Jake did get the Fafnir banned from him. To me, he is the most annoying Fafnir to deal with. I think he's
like the only one.
Embodies this dragon. And it also pulls back on your initial point that Obey doesn't really diversify how they win. Because if you look at it, game 1, game 2 bans Ra, Arachne, Kuzan.
Yep.
Those Those are their 3 right there. That's Wolfies, there's Sino, there's Inbound.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they need, too.
From there.
Sure.
And notice that none of those are meta picks either,
Yeah,
which means
sure.
that it leaves Renegades to take whatever they want, which is how they ended up getting Yamoja and Persephone in game 1. In game 2, they get an insane draft as well. It's because Obey doesn't have the pieces to force teams to respect their draft. If you're able to ban Arachne in your first phase, I feel like you've already won the metagame. You've already won P's and B's if you're able to afford 3 target bans like that.
Sure.
It depends, because like obviously Renegades beat Obey, right? So like they probably just banning their comfort picks, you know. Like they could probably left those picks open and won anyway. Renegades,
Agreed.
I think.
Agreed.
I did want
yeah.
to put a spotlight on Renegades a little bit more, because Jake did play Sobek both games. He must have been watching your stream, Zyrhoes. And also, I think Barracuda
Sobek is
popped off.
broken. He's. Hey, listen to this, yeah. Listen to this, yeah. Like this whole year, Trickstank has been playing so much Sobek, man. Like literally, I don't think we lost a game with Sobek ever. Maybe 1 or something, but like, then again, we've been winning most games, I suppose. But like, still, Sobek is so OP, man. And like, you look at SSG now; they play a lot of Sobek, and they win a lot with Sobek. He's such a good god, man, because he can initiate, he can peel, he can do everything, you know. And he's hard to kill. Like he's kind of like Fafnir, which is annoying, you know. He can play far up, but you don't really want to commit on him because as long as he has his ult or his charge prey up, like it's hard to kill him, you know. It's same as Fafnir. But it's just like I feel like Sobek, the pluck is better than the Fafnir hammer in the most scenarios, I guess. But like they're kind of similar, those 2 gods, I think.
It's just the ability to go in, commit your body with pluck, and then immediately, if you have to, tail whip, get everyone off you, walk away, throw out a sickening strike behind you to sustain. Or if you're worried about getting CC'd, lurking into the waters, and now if anyone wants to chase you down, they're also slowed. It's that Sobek has very high reward with very low risk in the late game, and I think that's partially why he's so strong, and his ability to not only initiate and peel. He's one of the most diverse Guardians in the game.
I do think late game Sobek though is where like a really good Sobek player will differentiate from a not that good Sobek player, because like plucking in late game, if you pluck a carry that has beads, you probably like you're stuck in an animation when you hit the pluck, right? So like even if you try to like spam your ult after you pluck and they beat, like 2 full build carries, you will die so fast. I think that's where good Sobek players is different from like mediocre or bad Sobek players. Cause like I think a good Sobek player late game will never like blink in and pluck a carry that has beats, for example. Like if you want to initiate, you'll probably blink and use your 2 or something, like knock people up and save your 1 to get out, just to start a fight. So I think that's a big difference. Because like as I said, if you blink in and pluck late game and they have beats, you just die straight away.
Agreed. Completely agree. And we've seen that a fair bit in the SPL with some of these Sobek players that go in with a pluck and just instantly die. We see Inbound do it sometimes. I gotta stop talking about it.
Do you have like a personal vendetta with Inbound and stuff? Did he take your spot on Obey or what?
It
should have been me.
It should have been me. It should have been me. But no. I'm definitely happy for him. He butted me on the box, so I gotta get my licks in.
Sure. Any final thoughts on this Renegades versus Obey set? I know we didn't really talk too much about Renegades because they did sort of look the better team through and through in this set.
100%.
I think that's what it comes down
Banana
to.
played set the second game.
Yeah, he did. We didn't even mention that. You guys' thoughts on someone else? I think the only other person we've seen pick up set mid was Paul. So is this more dive? Like set is like the ultimate dive character.
It's so much damage.
You need all 5 dive.
Yeah,
you
the
don't
5 dive.
Like, all 5 dive, maybe even hybrid, because yes, you do miss out on like, thousands and thousands of damage, but you just need enough to where their mid's dead. And now they are not doing thousands and thousands of damage.
Well, and especially if the game is going to end early, I think set can be very effective.
I mean, for the second game, they had Hebo Jungle to fill out the mage role in another role, right? And Hebo Jungle, if you guys remember last year, like Hebo mid was a meta for a long while. That was like when mid laner got way less farm, but like you would only pick mid laners that were really good late game. And Hebo still, in my opinion, is one of the best like backline mages you can have, because like it's so, if you're playing a jungle, support or solo and try to dive a Hebo, it's probably like one of the hardest gods to dive, because like you get knocked up, and like if Hebo's playing with his AD carry as well, like you get knocked up, you get peppered by ADC autos, which does 1 million damage right now because ADCs are broken. And then like he's still like, for junglers especially, because they don't have that much defense, you get knocked up into Hebo out, you're pretty much dead, it's like a hard mage dive. If you compare playing to against a tough if you're playing jungle, you know, like you don't have to worry about getting that much damage return. But like if you have to dive a Hebo, you have to make sure like one mistake and you're dead, you know. So like I think Hebo's still really good. And in that draft they did have set mid, but they still had the Hebo jungle, so they still had this like heavy backline mage, I guess.
Sure. Not to mention Barra going 5-0 on the Chernobog. I mean, that's definitely got to help.
Going
Barabog,
Cherno.
right? We all agree, Barabog?
That's
Barabog.
Chernakuda.
Get away from
Jesus.
Jingwei. I'm tired of seeing her. Just get away from her. Go Cherno. He's even safer. Just doesn't have the annoying passive.
Sure.
I think Barracuda is a very aggressive hunter who is forced to play passively. He looks great on Chernobog. He looks great on Ho Yi. When Barracuda is jumping in, you are winning the team fight.
Mhm.
That's what I see. It's just, it feels like Renegades is so
Getting there.
bullied so often by these upper seeded teams that they're so used to playing from behind that Barracuda is just not used to being allowed to do these things, which is why every time he gets to play against these lower seeded teams, United, Obey, we always bring up the vintage Barracuda line because he is playing so absolutely aggressive and he looks really good on it. But to address what you said about Ven, Apam,
Mhm.
it's a running bit now. I like to call him Ven of the Sharingan because in game 2, he'll almost always take whatever the enemy mid laner took in game 1, or he's playing gods that other players are very known for. He picked up Dardez's Hera, he picked up the Paul's set. He's stealing away these picks that are looking good for other people, and he's adapting it very well to his draft. And it feels like Renegades are very willing to play around Ven right now. And I think they're absolutely right to do it because he's on a very good hot streak, even though it's kind of overshadowed by the win-loss of the Renegades as a whole.
Sure.
For me, Ven is kind of weird to me because like I feel like his god pool is like all over the place. Like sometimes he has good picks for his comps, and sometimes you see him on picks that like for me it doesn't make sense. But then like you have Changa, for example, which I think is like one of the literally worst mid laners in the SPL, like not in the SPL, like in the game to play competitive. But like then again, Dardas places as well, and they're like a top team, so maybe they know something I don't. But like I feel like his god pool is like he plays a lot though. Van, it's kind of like Panda Cat last year, you know, like he played everything and did well on it. I guess Van doesn't do well on everything he plays, but like he does play a lot of gods, which is good to have like a big variety in a god pool. But like I don't know, man. Like I feel like he should find his strength in picks, and then his team should play around it maybe a little bit more.
Do you think they're experimenting? We saw Twig pick up Raw as well. That's not really a twigging it kind of god.
I think that Raw is just very good right now. Is the thing that everyone
got
kind
buffed
of needs to have
recently
that
too,
pick.
right?
Yeah, twice. Yeah.
Raw is OP, man. But people
Slow
don't know it yet, I
immunity
guess, but-
and do more plus Raw's passive. This god zooms.
Yeah,
That's
he's
an
zooming.
annoying god to die.
It's just his early press. You can play anything against Raw, pretty much anything. There's some gods that can compete with him a little bit, but like you can't, like you will be 1 or 2 levels behind because like you can't keep up in farm with Raw as an enemy mid laner. His early pressure is so OP, man. Like he clears waves on level 3. He like one-shots the wave.
Yeah.
And then like he has sustains, like he never loses HP clearing a jungle camp. You can solo red without any issues. Where other mid laners, like you lose a lot of health. Like to me, Raw, and then also Lotus Crown, 2050 gold, by the way.
Strong.
Yeah.
It makes it so hard to gank you too. Like,
Yeah, and then like in the Raw heal gives protection as well, and you have Lotus Crown standing in the Raw heal. Like you get Dove, and you and your ADC stands in the Raw heal, and you just kill everyone coming in. Like I think Raw is kind of OP, man.
Sure.
So
Last
good.
thing I want to mention about this, that we talked a little bit about sort of an all-5 dive composition, and that's sort of what we saw from the Renegades in the second game here, because like Cherno can dive, like that's all Cherno can do with the ult is dive, and Set is very good at diving, Guan Yu very good at diving, Sobek
Evo's
very
dive.
much good at diving. It's kind of reminding me of I'm a basketball fan, so like right now we see in basketball there's a lot of these like 5-out offenses, a lot of people playing on the perimeter. Is you think, sort of diving so hard into this dive meta, no pun intended there, is that something that you think will be successful?
I want to say, like, you think Chernobog, you ult with Chernobog, and you dive the backline. That doesn't have to be the case. As I said, you can run the standard comp with Chernobog. For me, I think Chernobog is sick. Like, I think it's so good. I think he struggles with kiting and dealing damage as he's kiting. That's one of his weaknesses, because like his dash is kind of slow. It's like it's hard to deal a lot of damage to frontline while kiting them. But a lot of people think with Chernobog in teamfights, you have to ult and dive the backline, but you can use ult, slow everyone, and then you have your jungler and solo lane and dive in the backline while they're slowed, and then you you come back down next to your mage. Peel for your mage, people. Do it. And then you can still come down. You reset your colons as well, right? So you have a dash again.
Yeah.
So you can still go up, slow the enemy team, and then come down again and still play with your mage. So I think there's a big mistake probably a lot of teams do where they try to dive with Chernobog ult instead of like you can just use it because it slows a lot and you get vision of everyone as well. So like sure, but like then again, sure, you can dive. Say you have a Janus mid and a Chernobog ADC, you can use it for dive as well, right?
Yeah. I didn't think about it.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
That's a good point to bring up.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think Zeros definitely hits it where I feel like when people play Chernobog, they feel like, okay, I am able to teleport to the enemy, so I might as well do it.
Yep.
You don't have to. It is global slow that it does. I think it's a 16% slow on everybody, additional vision as well. That's insane. It's such a good, strong team fight ability. I think that you could honestly just use it like Nuwa, start up a team fight with it, and then decide to walk in with it.
And when you do dunk down, you get like extra damage because I think your passive procs on every auto attack. You get damage mitigation as well. So if you do come down next to your mid laner on the enemy soul laner trying to dive your mid laner, like you don't really take any damage. You can just pound like you killed frontliners in like 4 autos with the current ADC builds anyway. So like,
But how far till we see that? Like every time I see a Chernobog, I'm expecting somebody to get 1v1'd and then all right back in to get 1v1'd again, if not 2v1'd.
Yeah, we see it pretty often.
There's like there's a certain mindset around characters like Chernobog or Chiron that can help the team out more, but it's still being played kind of selfishly, I'd say.
Well, it's because hunters are selfish players. They're all smooth-brain pew-pewers, dude. I mean, that's just how it is.
All right, any final thoughts here on this before we move on to the next set of the week? All right, I think that's a good sign to move on to the next set of the week, which was Space Station Gaming versus Sanguine. And again, I said there was a theme this week of a lot of quick 2-0 sets. Another pretty quick 2-0 set. I think game 1 was 21 minutes or 23 minutes, something like that. Very quick. Game 2, also quick. I think another 21 minutes game here. Dardes gets Hera in both these games. I think we've said multiple times you just can't give Dardes Hera in these games. And you're going to lose him if he gets it. What are your initial thoughts on Space Station versus Sanguine?
I don't think that's true. Like Dardes has a kind of weird god pool, in my opinion. Like right now, like he liked the Afro, which I feel like Afro is good if she gets through the early game. But I think there's a lot of things to counter it. But I think people are like, usually when it comes to sustain gods, people just hate playing against it. Like it's same as Morrigan, she has stealth. That like people just hate playing against sustain and stealth and like anything that's annoying. So you ready just ban it away. But like I think Afro mid has so many weaknesses that you could abuse, but like I guess people just can't be asked to figure it out maybe. And I think Hera as well. Hera is really good though. I think she's a top mid right now. So like I respect the Hera pick, even though Dardes likes to build 50% CDR on Hera for some reason every game. I don't know what's up with that. But like Hera is a really good pick though. But she also like obviously she's very susceptible to dives, like she has no mobility. She has a good shield for survivability, but then again, you have Raffer usually playing a peeling support, like he peels for his backline, which a lot of other SPL teams doesn't like. If Raffer would play Kuzenbo or something, like this Hera would struggle a lot, because she has no one helping her out.
Yeah, I think that the reason that Aphrodite works so well for Space Station is something we hit on earlier today, in that they play the most exclusively European style as well, when everyone else is kind of adapted to the standard SPL meta, this more North American grind fest where the second level 12 minutes rolls around, they group up on Gold Fury and take a fight there. 18 minutes rolls around, they group up on Fire Giant, take a fight there. Space Station is a team that is very willing to play slowly if that's something that their draft allows. And it feels like these teams that are so used to having to match aggression against their enemy don't really know what to do when the enemy team is super willing to just farm it out. And that's why we see them get a lot of value out of this Aphrodite. They're willing to play incredibly safe around it, as well as it's just that frustration point of, okay, she's got beads, she's got Aegis, she's got beads and Aegis and Undying Love, plus the healing, and she's healing someone else. And with Cherio diving me on Erlang Shen, now all of a sudden he's got a moving beads Aegis and it can attack me at the same time. So I think it's really that no one wants to figure out how to play against it, as you pointed out, Zeros, which is, good and bad, right? You can ban it out. But I think that Space Station in particular as a team, Dardes, the player in particular as well, has so many gods that he's been able to perform on such a high level on that he acts as this lightning rod for his team where, okay, we got to address the Hera. We got to get rid of this Aphrodite. Oh, God, what's left? Oh, Cherio's gotten like 18 pentas this year. Maybe we ban the Erlang Shen or the Kali. So I think that Space Station is a team that has garnered so much respect and maybe even a bit of fear from the other teams where it feels like we can't let them get these incredibly strong picks. But now we're letting all these meta picks through. Nika got an 11-game streak where he's allowed to play Amaterasu just for 10 weeks in a row. I think he's only lost ever one game on it. There are things that Space Station have that need to be addressed and can't be because Dardes in particular just has so much fear around him.
Yeah, but I think that's weird though, like, because obviously, sure, you don't want to play against those picks, like you don't want to play against the Afro and the Hera. They are really annoying if they're ahead. But then again, I think it's for Raffer, why not ban out Raffer instead? Take away these good peeling characters as he plays. Like he plays a lot of Solbeck and Capri for now.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ban those, the Hera and the Afro will be a lot easier to kill, right? Like compared to if you have an Afro Capri, it's super hard to kill. Like I think if maybe I shouldn't say that because maybe we will play them at worst or whatever. But like, I mean, maybe instead of worrying about Dardes God Pool, like maybe you could take something else away, you know, like something that makes it work. And then again, Shario, I think is the perfect jungler for Dardes and his God Pool right now. Because like with Afro, if you play Afro mid, you want a jungler and you want pressure, you know, because like Afro really lacks in the early game, and you need to be able, if you can defend your own buffs and just go even in the early game with Afro, you're kind of winning already, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be worried about that. Like, but I think Shario, like he knows exactly, like he will play the Erlang, like something super strong early jungle, you know, to like make this Afro get through the early game, and that's what they do really well, I think. Space Station.
Sure. Frost,
the Erlang, the Robin.
Any thoughts, Frost, on this set?
I think I said 2-0 for this one. Mm-hmm. SSG just being Sanguine Prime. To me, it just feels like big brother, little brother. SSG is everything Sanguine wants to be. To me, it doesn't ever look like Sanguine has a plan beyond like 2 minutes ahead of where they are currently. Whereas SSG has its whole like, all right, this is our plan for the early, this is our mid, this is the late. I'm sure they're even wondering what happens beyond 60 minutes. I think Sanguine is just like a take what we can get, and anything within the forethought of 2 minutes is how we're going to approach it. And it just shows here. It looks like SSG has a crystal ball every time they play in a Sanguine.
And Sanguine, just to speak to your point there, after they lost game 1, I'm sure that wasn't within their plan, because game 2, they went to the weirdest draft I've ever seen. Amuz and Cobb ADC, Serket Jungle, Kuzumbo Thoth together with King Arthur out of solo. And I'm just sitting there like, there's so many good things available. We could see Netroid go to his signature Jingwei, or he's been succeeding on Ho Yi recently. And instead, he picks one of the most immobile hunters in the game, which allows SSG to just play whatever they want. Guan Yu being meta right now means that AMC, I should almost never see him. Cavalry Charge dominates that god. You can still say late game, sure, he can maybe kill Guan Yu on the way in because Hunter builds are OP, to speak to Zyrhoes' point. But it's just, I don't know. It felt like Sanguine really did just crumble in game 2.
I think Sanguine is a kind of weird spot right now. I don't think really they know how they want to draft or play. But like for me, it's kind of weird because like I think Shinto and Netroid, I think individually, I think those two players are the best in the SPL right now. Wow. Maybe for Netroid, like I think PBM, not PBM, I think Panda Cat is like close. But I think Netroid and Shinto, I think are so good at the game, man, like individually. And I don't think Sanguine plays enough around them to like empower them, rather than like, I don't really know what they're doing right now, but like I think they could be a lot better if they just played around Shinto and Netroid and more. Because like them two players are just so good. Like all of the players on Sanguine obviously really good, you know, but like I feel like they just draft kind of weird. Like you see the second game, you have Wrong Yu on. I was about to curse that, sorry. They have Kuzumbo support and King Arthur solo, right? There's no peel, and they have an AMC and Toff, which has no like really self-peel. Sure. Do you understand what I mean? It's just a bad comp from the start, from the get-go. Like I just don't understand what's going on there.
It seems like they're a little maybe too 5-head for their own good. Like I think there's probably like Dardes has played AMC in the past, especially in mid and things like that. So you know, maybe they're like, oh, we can pick the AMC away from Dardes, but Dardes had already picked up Hera.
You just let him pick it, it's shit.
Sure, yeah. I think you let him pick it too. But, you know, it seems like they were maybe thinking a little too hard about it and not just playing the hand that they were dealt, so to speak. And then, like you said, they give up Guan Yu last pick, which just wrecks Amuz and Cobb. So it was
And
really,
Both.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were probably just eviscerated. Like in the first game, Rom, Erlang Shen, Thoth, what do we got here? Horus, Cthulhu. That is a sanguine comp. This is kind of
Sure.
like a. We've always said they never shy away from showing their best hand. I think the result from that first game, they showed their best hand and it got slapped down. It just was completely demoralizing to where they go, well, what now? We used our best stuff and now well, AMC. I don't know if you just wanted the game to be over faster or something. To me, it felt like they've hit that wall of we think we're the best. We're going to play our way. We're always going to stick to it. But now it's almost an uncertainty of, okay, we're playing at our best, but we're just not winning.
Yeah, maybe. But then, like as you say, like the AMC, like I think that's a weird pick. I don't think it's very good. But like you could probably make an AMC work, but then you have to draft around it, right? As I said, you have a Kuzenbo support and a King Arthur soul. You have no peel. And you're playing like against the Erlang, Guan, Sobek, and Hera. Like Hera as well is like kind of good at hitting the backline because you can drop Argus, right, and then she runs away. So like you have a very unsafe or very bad backline at dealing with dive, and you have no peel to support them. It's just a bad draft. Like this doesn't matter which team. It could be even if Beltslap played that sanguine draft, we'd lose against PlayStation in that game. So
yeah, even Beltslap. I respect that confidence. My issue with Sanguine right now, and I think Other Frost hit it just a moment ago, is it feels like now that their identity is in a bit of flux, they're not that late game one-trick team anymore where they're trying to incorporate this early game. They're not willing to play the exact same drafts as everyone else. I legitimately think, and it is an ongoing joke, that they take their picks by opening up Reddit, looking at that Reddit tier list that comes out every month, and they're like, all right, what's in Triple S? I want that. Wherever it can fit out. And I think that they really should establish themselves to be able to play some comfort picks. That's why we see these other teams doing so well. Once a team establishes comfort picks and it forces out some bans, it opens you up to getting the truly meta stuff. Panatom in particular is a very good example of this. His best gods right now are Thor and Susano. He looks best on those two picks, but he keeps going to the Nemesis. He's looking at the Circuit. He's going towards these other things, and he's just playing them because other people are playing them and other people are succeeding. I think Sanguine need to look more so into themselves before they try to evaluate the meta.
It's a good point to bring up there. Any final thoughts on this set before we move on to the last set that was played this week?
I think SSG is breezing right now. They're in a position of like
coasting,
sitting there firmly going, you have to beat us. Everyone else has to play an attacking game against them. And SSG is one of the best defensive control-oriented kind of teams. And even going into that with the mental, it's always going to be in their favor.
The only thing I have to say is Dardus had 50% cooldown reduction on Hera both games. So
he's going to sell the Mage's Blessing.
Eventually.
All right, the last set of Week 11 was Ghost versus Renegades. And the score says 2-0, but I think it was a little bit closer in Game 2 than Ghost really wanted. And Renegades really started off the early game in Game 2 looking really good. What are your guys' initial thoughts on this? I think Renegades really showed up for this game, but maybe threw a little bit in the late game there.
This one was funky. It felt like Game 1, they go, let's play super early. But it was also like a very reserved, we always hold down the gas pedal, but now we're going to implement a break here and there. And so they found a not as fast way to go downhill, but also kind of control the pacing there. And then the second game, the troll game, that's where they went, let's try to go for a late game. Almost as if they had a bet, like, all right, no one's allowed to get first blood till 15 minutes.
For me, it's like the first game, obviously, like variety fed his brains out. But I mean, it is hard. He's playing against a Willis jungle, which is obviously really good against Serb. But Serb is one of them picks, kind of like me, like Emir, that like Serb is really popular in SPL from support and solo. People like to play it. For me, I just think it's a shit god, you know? Like, he does damage. He's like a warrior. it doesn't peel for his backline. I guess for solo lane it kind of makes sense because you can die with Serb,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
I think it's just worse at that than like an Amaterasu or like any other solo lane, like King Arthur or like any other solo lane will probably dive better than Serb. So I don't see why that's a good pick. And obviously he got counterpicked by a Willix in the first game as well. And then I feel like there's something with Ghost, and whenever Final K is playing Nike as well, because like there's just Sam for Soccer and the Final K. When Final K is on Nike, they just make it work every time, and they have pressure. And like Final K gets super big on Nike, and like when Nike solo gets fed, it's so hard to deal with. I think because like if she comes into team fights and she's bigger than the enemy ADC and the enemy mage, it's just very hard to kill her, right? And she does damage too. And like as for an ADC, for example, like she can put up her 2, like blocks all auto attacks for like I don't know, like 8 seconds or whatever, however long that ability lasts. Like if Nike gets big in solo lane, it's very hard to deal with. Like you're like, oh sure, we can build Sunder to remove her ult or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. Like whenever Ghost gets, I think Nike for Ghost right now seems to be like whenever they get Nike, the games are not even like close, kind of. So
sure, I think Final K is really the only one who's been playing the Nike solo to any success. I don't think we've really seen it from any other solo laners in the SPL, at least this phase.
Yeah, not this phase. I think last phase, I think Benji played it a bit.
Sure,
and then maybe some other solo laners as well. But I think
that was the win condition for MSI.
Yeah, but I think after that, that's when Sunder started removing shields, right? And that's when like people stopped playing it, but he started playing it again. So
I think that I don't have a major issue with Renegades' draft as a whole. It's the draft order. They first picked Cerberus immediately out of the rip, which opens them up to the Willix Rom. Well, what are you doing? Cerberus is good. He can work out. I mean, you got the CC, you've got a slow.
He's not even good. He's like mediocre at best, in my opinion. But yeah, sure.
First pick overall, immediately I saw the Willix pick come through, and I'm like, oh, well, good luck wherever this goes. And I felt like Renegades really wanted that Cerberus to go into the support role. And then they pick up the Amaterasu later on, and then they're thinking about it. I'm even thinking by the time they pick up the Amaterasu, they're like, all right, that's going to go in a soul lane. And then someone's eyes glaze over as they look over at Ghost draft and like, oh, there's a Willix over there. It's going to get bodied. Let's make sure that they're not camping our duo lane because we really want our ADC to do well. We need Barracuda performing well. So we're going to try and drag Sam for Soccer away. And I think that's a misplay in of itself. If you know a lane is going to lose no matter what, you might as well have a lane you have your support be losing. Have him fall behind. He's less impactful than your soul laner. Had Amaterasu gone into solo, he would have had a much better matchup over there. He would have been able to rotate into team fights and be impactful. I think that might have been a misplay in of itself.
I think I played with Variety for 2 years back in Dignitas, and I don't know if anything has changed, but like Amaterasu is not his pick. He hated it back then because I was playing like way back. When I was playing solo lane for Cringe Crew. When I was playing back with Emilsi and the boys. I've always thought Amaterasu is so OP. Like when you get to teamfight late game, she has so much potential. She can play with the backline with the aura. She can initiate kind of. But like Variety, I tried to get him to play it on Dignitas for 2 years straight, and like he wouldn't. Like he just hates the pick. We had some scrims. I remember against Rival, where I would play Amaterasu solo and he would go Janus mid because like he just wouldn't play it. So I was like, okay, I'll play it then. So like I just don't think he plays it, which is kind of weird. Like it's not that hard of a god to play. Let's be honest. Maybe he doesn't think it's fun or whatever, but like she is so good. I think Amaterasu.
That comes down to it, right? Like, do you always play the strong stuff, or do you also like? Are there some gods that you go, oh, they're really strong. I just hate playing them.
Yeah,
it depends on that. Completely depends on the meta, I think. Like sometimes you can like kind of avoid the meta a little bit because like you have players that are really good at certain gods and you can play them anyway and beat it. But sometimes the meta is just that strong that you kind of have to play it. In my opinion, that's how I think. Sure, you should play to every person's like all the players' strength. But like sometimes you have picks like Amaterasu. She have got nerfed now. She was even better than she is now, and she's still really good. So like, but like if gods are that good, I think like people just have to suck it up and play it. If you can't play it, play a couple of ranked games or casual games or whatever, and like just learn how to play the gods. So.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Aggro. This is the SPL. These guys are making big money. Their houses are paid for. This is a job. You need to be able to play the best picks in the game right now. If you can't play Yamoja, if you can't play Persephone, if you can't play Amaterasu, that is such a huge detriment to your team. I think that if it still stands true, if a Variety can't play Amaterasu, SPL players should be paying attention to this show in particular now that you've just exposed this. Because that is huge. I hadn't even put that together, but you're right. I haven't seen Variety playing this god very often. That might be a hangover of the old days. And Amaterasu is first pick material. It's a very safe pick. She doesn't have any direct counter matchups. You can get away with laning with her. She's very safe with a sustain and lane. So that is a huge deal. Variety's incapable of playing that pick. But what we haven't talked about yet, and I thought it was going to be the huge talking point about this game during the picks and bans, was that Polar Bear Mike decided to go towards that Fenrir support. It didn't really matter throughout the course of the game because Sam for Soccer diffed him harder than I've ever seen before in my life. But that's interesting, and it fits Mike's playstyle very well, and he still performed very well on it. He got outshone, but the slash line is still 2-1 and 13. He was getting huge value out of the ultimates. He was able to separate the back lines incredibly well. And when you have a pick like this flavor pick out of the support role that fits that playstyle, it almost act as a pseudo Hercules, the amount of pressure he was able to put out. I think that's a huge threat to the entirety of the league now that people have to be worried about another aggressive support that Mike's capable of playing.
Sure.
Hold on now. Is he capable of playing it? Or we have said that against bottom teams, they're a bit more liberal with like experimentation. His last item was a tower shield. Is he very capable with a Fenrir, or is he trying to test out Glad?
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Glad shield is
it's sick. It's sick right now.
Dog shit. It's so bad, man. It's literally what is that item, man? It's so bad. It's like the stats on it. It's pretty good. But have you guys tried out the proc? If you have what is it? 750 procs. If you have 325 fizz and 325 magical procs.
650.
Yeah. It does 74 damage on a level 20 squishy targets without auras, but there's always auras, right? There's always a Phoebs, maybe Sov. It's so bad, that item. Like the proc on that item, literally irrelevant. If you build that item, it's for the stats, and the stats are definitely not better than Void Shield and Sludge, in my opinion.
Sure.
It's just an easy way to slot some cooldown in your build and some survivability. I think that Glad Shield is in a spot that you can build it on supports in particular because we're seeing that the sledge is coming through.
No, not for sure.
Glad Shield on support.
I think that we might see it. You know, I'm a jungler. I don't need peel. I'm a part of the frontliners, okay? I want my support up there dealing damage with me, and I think Glad Shield could definitely work out.
That's why I'm thinking the whole like dive meta.
Bro, the proc does 74 damage if you have 650 procs.
But it's 40 proc, 200 health, and 10% cooldown.
Yeah, it's not so that bad, but it's not like a game-changing item. Like you can just get Sledge and deal more damage, get some more defense. Fair. You miss out on 10% CDR. Who gives a shit? But it's
but it allows for a very selfish build path because I've actually tested it out. Right now, I'm doing the like A to Z supports. So Herc, Mulan. Let's see, boots, sledge, short, Thebes, mantle, pretty much, because you want the hybrid ones. The hybrid ones give more total protections overall. And then you just finish it off with the Glad. Yeah, you get 650. It doesn't proc that much, but the build itself, topped up with that as a cherry on top, is like, I wish I could play like this all the time as support and not have to carry auras or peel for my team. I just want to go feel unkillable. But then,
you want to play solo.
Yeah, then but I can't make it work there for some reason. And then you run into a hunter and you're like, well, shit, I forgot no mitigations.
Yeah, hunters are in such a spot right now. Zyrhoes, you nailed it, man. It is so hard to be a frontliner with hunters right now. And even there are only a few select mages that should win a 1v1 against a hunter. I'm thinking like Hebo. If they find each other somehow in the jungle alone, Hebo should be able to beat a hunter. But outside of that, it feels like if you get seen first and the hunter lands an auto attack before a mage lands an ability, there's no way you're going to win. And assassins don't even feel good running at these guys right now. Unless
I think it's for 1-on-1 versus mage against hunters, I think it kind of depends. Like if I play top, for example, I can't lose a 1-on-1 against a hunter. Like it's the freest thing ever. But like it that's not what I'm getting at. It's just like the damage you're doing when killing tanks, and the fact that every item in your build is like 2,000 gold.
So cheap.
When I'm playing mage, I'm playing like 3k for every item, and like I can't, like when I get a new item, I don't even see the difference. Like the damage numbers are the same, Well, if you get a new item on a hunter, like, oh, whoa, I just killed
Like
this guy with 3
19
imps now.
passives. Yeah, hunters
Yeah.
get haste. They get health per auto attack.
With mage you get 100 extra power and your abilities, but at the point you get 100 extra power, the people you're hitting has 100 extra magical defense, so like the damage is the same.
Sure.
So like,
and then hunters get to attack faster too.
Yeah,
I don't mind them so far. Like, I don't mind the enemy hunter blasting me for like 5,000 every hit. It's more so my hunter. It pisses me off. My hunters can't do the same. It just feels like I was with the one person, and I think some of these games look like that. If you have the team comp that enables the hunter, like you win that, and the enemy hunter is kind of like, come on, guys, I want to do damage too.
All right, before we move on to the postponed sets, I do gotta stick up for my boy Harry here. You know, I struggle to say that players in the SPL cannot play gods, but I think they heavily favor their comfort picks. You know, we see this with Kubo, who heavily favors the Camazotz, and personally, I don't think Camazotz is very good in the jungle.
Agreed.
And, you know, we see like Nike and Solo that Final K is playing. I just think the players are so good mechanically that it's not that he can't play Ama, it's just that he would rather never play Ama because that's a comfort for him.
I haven't said that he would never play it. That's just like from like 3 years back or something when I was on Dignitas with him. You know, it's like it's not like maybe he can play it now. I don't know, but like he was never a big fan of Amaterasu.
I just want to say I think like all the players could probably play any god, but there are some guys that they're just much more comfortable with, regardless of sort of the situation.
Sure.
I think that's what it comes down to. You know, if you enjoy your off meta, I think it'll be better than a corporate businessy, this is my job, top meta character.
Look, if you're playing off meta, you better be real good at it. That's all I'm going to say. You better be really good at it.
That's true.
Or you have to make your team play around you, right, to make that pick work. That's either one. You can't just pick an off-meta pick that, like, say if I play top, for example, and I pick it into a shit comp and that, like, makes no sense. Like, I will just not do anything, you know? Like, I would never do that. Then I'd rather play Zeus or whatever, you know, that my team needs me to play. Even though I hate it, I'll still do it, you know? Like, it has to be, like... Yeah, like, so if you have picks you really want to play, then, like, either you have to make your team play around you, but, like, sometimes that's not the best thing to do, you know? Like, sometimes it's better to play around other people, and then you might have to play the meta picks to, like, enable your jungler or your mid laner or your ADC or whoever is going to carry that game, you know?
Well, these are the questions I'm sure that Ro and the rest of the Renegades are working on as we're speaking right now, so...
It's, like, fine, you know, he hates Sobek, he hates Nike, but he still plays them to win.
Sure.
I think you have to have a few games, though, or you don't have to play meta for your own sanity. That's why they do have these downward spirals in the middle of the season where it's like, I can't, I'm done playing this. I just want to int in peace.
Right,
I think Twig is interesting, though. Before we move on, I think Twig is an interesting player because he has got so many carryovers from his jungle days that you could see that he genuinely plays so much better on the Poseidons, on the Hebos, on gods like this, the Raijins, where he can almost fit that jump in, I want to get aggressive playstyle. Twig looks best when he blinks in, water spouts, crushing waves, hits 2 people, then instant dies. That's some of the best play you'll see from Twig because he's doing it properly every single time. And I think that fits the playstyle of his team, to speak to what we were just talking about, that he is willing to play this dive playstyle for his squad. He might prefer playing the Thos. He might rather play the Hebo. I don't think he does, but he might. But Ghost is like building their drafts around this team identity, and I think that's why they're succeeding so much. It's not that each one of these players are individually mechanically so much better than everyone else, except for Sam for Soccer. He is absolutely the best.
He's a 1v1 monster.
Yeah. Dude's a legend. That besides him, I mean, he kind of invalidates any theoretical Smite conversation you want to have. He's that good. But I think that Twig in particular is doing such a good job role playing for his team, and it's so different from how every other mid laner likes to play.
Because he plays like he's playing duel, and he's playing like he's playing jungler. That's just Twig's playstyle. He plays for pure value that transcends modes and playstyle.
Yep.
Like him going under tower, blinking, murdering you for first blood. He dies too. It doesn't matter. He got
as Anubis, by the way.
He got the value out of it. He got more value, and more people would rather just not die, but he'll take that trade because it's in his favor.
Yep.
Now, I think it's more like the way Twig plays and his gods he's playing right now. Like, obviously Anubis, in my opinion, is just so bad. Like, it's such a bad pick. But I mean, if your team is winning and like if you can do stuff with the early game, like it like any pick in the game can work. You know, like like I do think Anubis is literally down there, like one of the worst picks in the game. But like they make it work. Like Anubis can have early pressure, and Ghost loves early pressure. But the thing with Ghost is like even if they draft early pressure and don't win the early pressure, and they get behind. I'm not sure if it was this set at the second game against Renegades where they were behind, and I felt like their comp might be a little bit worse. They still can win late game, like even when they do have the worst draft. That's why I think Ghost is such an impressive team, because like they don't have to have the better draft. They can win anyway. I don't know if they use outplay the enemies, like whoever they're playing against, or like what's going on, but like I think they're just such a solid team, because like even if they have a draft disadvantage, I think they always have a chance in a way.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to maybe some of the not so bright spot of this week. There were 2 postponed sets because there were some personal issues with one of the members on the PK, and I know we probably don't know any of the details about that. And I'm not
but
expecting.
I'm not going to say anything.
I'm not going to expecting.
Edit it out so the rest of us know.
But we have seen postponed sets really take a toll on other teams in this league, specifically Radiance, who went on a 6-set slide after coming back from, I guess there was the bye week there too, but they had sort of 2 weeks of postponed sets. Do you guys think something similar could happen to PK in this set? And I don't know if you can say anything, Myflin, but do you know if they're going to be playing this week?
They will be playing this week. I can't say anything else on the topic, but I worry for PK because I don't want that to happen to them, because especially how well they've been performing recently, just climbing, rocketing throughout the standings right now. This is a team that I feel like really established their identity in the last couple of weeks. They figured out what works for them. They're really gearing up towards Worlds. They want to defend that title. And if this is something that could really put us like a damper on this upward angle that they're on right now, I think that is a huge concern if you're a PK fan. But I trust this team. They're filled with veterans. I know that we like to talk about basket intangibles. I think Zapman's another player that certainly has that. He's been in the league for so long. I think that if any team could bounce back from this quickly, it is PK. And I think that they're a team, and this is me completely blowing smoke out of my ass, I think that they're a team that don't concern themselves too much with losing. It feels like they're not overly worried when they're not performing well.
Yeah.
Recently in an interview, Hindu Man was talking to Paul, and he's like, so how's it feel to never ever beat a top 4 team? You haven't done it a single time in phase 2. And Paul said, what? I thought we did. So
yeah,
it seems like they get brushed off.
There's nonchalantness, and maybe he's just forgetful.
Functionally the same, right?
SK whole last season, like they were like literally a bottom team the whole last season, and they won Worlds. So I don't think they care if they play a little bit worse for a little while now, but I don't think they will. Like whoever's sick on PK, like we don't even know how long they've been sick. Like it's probably something pretty serious, but like maybe they've been playing a little bit in a while. I don't know how serious it is, but I think they're gonna when they stop playing again, I think they're gonna look just like they did when they left it.
That's good. That's good. What about you, Frost? You think what effect do you think this postponement could have on PK?
Let's see here. This postponement, I don't think it'll do much of anything. I honestly give them the benefit of the doubt in that Zap said that it's all a mentality thing. Why don't we do too well right now? Well, we're not playing at LAN. We don't see our opponents. We don't have that energy, I think right now, this is when they're all going to have their energy just gearing up for Worlds. Why is this any different? Like, why is phase 1, phase 2, and now any different from the rest of it? Because it's just that energy, that drive to actually go there. It's just right around the corner instead of like, all right, coming into the office, 9 to 5. Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
It's just more tangible now, and I think that's where these boys thrive.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to ask about, these postponed matches is they will have to be made up at some point, and that will involve PK having to play an extra match in that week. Do you think having to play an extra match could, change up the effects of the other matches that will have to be played during that week? Like, especially for PK, like there are going to be some weekends when they'll have to play 3 games or 3 sets for sure. And coaches are the first to tell you that preparation, that matters the most. And so having an extra match to prepare for means that you're not going to be able to spend time for, the other ones. Is that something that could, cause some effect?
They don't strike me like the kind of team that does homework for the others. I think their homework is for their own play style, and they'd almost welcome the gauntlet. I think if PK could do all their games in 2 weeks, they'd rather that than actually have it's like two every 2 weeks or something like that.
Sure.
No, I think having a lot of games in a week it can be annoying because like you have to prepare for every team, right? And like it depends. Like sometimes you just feel like, okay, this team we don't have to prepare that much because like some teams are like more one-dimensional. You know, they do the same thing. Like Sanguine, for example, like they do the same thing. I don't think you have to prepare if you were in SPL that much against. They're a really good team, but you probably wouldn't have to prepare that much against them. But then you have teams like Ghost. Who else? Maybe Ghost and Sanguine, maybe.
Or
Not
SSG.
Sanguine. I just said them.
SSG, yeah.
SSG, maybe, yeah. And like there's teams you have to prepare, but like a lot of games are like you don't have to prepare that much. It's more like thinking about your own game. So like I don't think it's gonna be a problem for them at all.
So PK's makeup matches are on Saturday this week. They've only got one makeup this week, and it's going to be up against Radiance. And they've also got Ghost Gaming on Saturday as well. But I think that whether or not you have to prepare for a team or having to play more matches is going to be detrimental or good for you is very situational. I'm going to do something that the community hates and talk about when I used to be a player back in the way back when.
No, that's why you're here, man. We want your experience.
So when I would be on LAN, I would absolutely love, if I had to play a garbage team into a much better team. Because you get to come in with hot hands, right? You've warmed up a little bit. You know what you're going to do. There's something to be said about fatigue, and obviously there's going to be diminishing returns. If I have to play 4 sets back to back, my third set might be my best set, and the fourth set might be the worst. But I think that PK is a team that is very, very good in like high pressure situations. These guys, I think it might come with their nonchalantness. Is that a word? I'm not sure. Nonchalance. They should be able to do very well here. And I think they've certainly high-rolled as well. It's going to be PK up against Radiance first. Radiance is certainly backsliding right now. It feels like they don't really know what to do in the mid to late game with shot calling. Their drafts are in a state of flux as well. And then they get to come into that Ghost set with hot hands. I think that they might be able to find an upset this week, just if they are coming in playing well, assuming that whatever illness begets them right now isn't too dire.
Sure.
So I think that all in all, we shouldn't be too worried about PK. I think they've definitely got a very good shot this week. And because we're a good company, high res that is, we're not forcing them to do all their makeup games in the same day. We're not forcing them to do it all in the same week either as well. So I'm feeling good for them.
It's time to make our picks for the Week 12 SPL games. I think we'll start with Myflin on this one. The first game of the week is Radiance versus Sanguine. Myflin, who are you choosing in this one? Radiance versus Sanguine.
That's such an interesting set because both of these teams are in such a weird spot right now. Both Radiance and Sanguine have been struggling recently. But I think it comes down to how much variance do each one of these squads have. I think that Sanguine's skill floor is higher than Radiance's, but their skill ceiling is simultaneously lower. So it really does come down to how is Radiance going to perform. And I think recently we've seen that they've been bouncing back ever so slightly. So long story short, we'll say 2-1 Radiance.
All right, Frost, how about you? Radiance versus Sanguine.
Same exact thing, honestly. With the volatility and the variance, to me, it goes Radiance on their worst day, then Sanguine on their worst day, Sanguine on their best day, then Radiance on their best day. So it's really going to come down to how, if Radiance is getting their stuff back together, they got that ceiling to fall back into, and they're going to take it. If not, if they're looking sloppy, Sanguine has that composition, that team style that just directly counters a very sloppy team. And so I think Radiance are getting back together. I think they're starting to form it all. By now, they should have figured it out. I'm thinking 2-0.
Ooh.
2-0 for Radiance from Frost. All right, Zyrhoes, how about you? Radiance versus Sanguine.
I have the same, like, it's so hard to tell because I think if both teams play their A game, I think Sanguine will probably win. I'm not sure, but like I'll probably give it to Sanguine. But I think Sanguine has been looked kind of lost in the sauce lately. So I don't know. And I think Radiance have been struggling. And I think Radiance has players like Aurora and Adapting that I know for a fact that like they care a lot and like they probably want to like, what are we doing wrong? You know, like we have to be better. And obviously they have a lot of like really good players in that team as well. And if they have figured stuff out by now, I'd definitely give it to Radiance. And honestly, I do think they have. So like I would give it Radiance like 2-1 or 2-0. I'm not sure. But then as well, like Sanguine, I have no idea because like they're new in the SPL. They've been playing in SML recent year. Like they don't have that much experience. Like I don't know how fast they are at like seeing like, oh, what are we doing wrong? You know, like they might just think like, oh, we're doing the right things, but we're just playing bad or whatever. You know, when there's something bigger than that. So like, I definitely think Radiance take this one. I could be very wrong on this, I think, but like I think 2-1 is a safe bet.
Sure.
But if Radiance has really stepped up, 2-0, but I go with 2-1 Radiance.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of in the same boat. It was a little bit disappointing. I think Sanguine has had a couple of losses in the past couple weeks where Radiance has sort of been finding their form a little bit more again. So I agree with basically all of what you guys said. I think it's going to be Radiance 2-1. All right, Frost, let's start with you on the next one, which is Space Station Gaming versus Obey. Who do you think's going to win it?
Oh boy, this is oh boy, it's gonna be Bobby against Raffer. I just think it's gonna be very similar to PBM versus Gino, a more like tenured support. I almost said complete there. I'd say Raffer's just way more tenured, way more synchronized with his own team. It's gonna come down to them. It's gonna be 2-0, but it's gonna be two very long matches.
Okay. Zyrhoes, how about you? Space Station Gaming versus Obey.
2-0 Obey. No, just kidding. Space Station 2-0 easy, I think.
Okay.
They're a smart team. They probably know all the strengths of Obey. I don't know. They've probably been screaming each other as well. So like I reckon Space Station probably knows exactly like what Obey does when they do well. So like I think this is an easy 2-0 for Space Station.
Sounds good. Looks like Space Station sweep if Myflin's gonna go for it, but I know you're the Obey stand here, Myf. So who you got? Space Station versus Obey.
Look, I vote Obey on sets that Obey aren't even playing in, but I'm gonna go into it just ever so slightly because I think that Other Frost hits a pretty good point there of the inbound versus Raffer train. Of all of SSG's roster, I think that Raffer is the one that fluctuates the most on any given day. He might be a beast. Last weekend, he was a beast on this Sobek. He's hitting every puck.
Because he's playing good gods.
Yeah, and he's playing good gods. Sometimes he's doing some other stuff. But Raffer also can straight up lose you some games. I'll never fault him for it because he won't lose you games very often, as shown by the standings currently. If I were betting money, I'm putting SSG on the board. But I'm betting my soul, which is something that I've already given away multiple times with separate deities and demons. So I'm going to go ahead and put Obey up there and just pray that that energy that I put into the universe is enough to find them a win. 2-1 Obey.
2-1 Obey from Mifflin.
Man, I love put extra money on that.
How's that gonna work? How's Obey gonna like who? I want to know more about that 2-1 actually. Like how is Obey gonna win 2 games against SSG? Who is gonna carry and like what's gonna happen? Like what's your vision for that one?
Lord and Savior Sino on God. Maybe they just don't ban the Arachne. He locks in the Erlang. Arachne sucks, but Sino it's getting bans. That's all I know. I haven't even got to see him play it yet because they ban it so often. So, Lord B Sino of the jungle, please deliver unto me some Obey dubs. Thank you. Amen.
Okay, I will put money on it that Bobby plays Ymir, right? Because his wall is really good against SSG comps. They have those kind of get caught out characters, but they're also the I'm going to turn on you now. I think this is the last game of Ymir that Bobby's going to play.
Ever.
That's a good prediction.
For the rest of this league. Just to make it spicy, I think he's finally going to like get absolutely run over because he's going to get some good walls, and the only option left is to just burn through them to the point where he goes, you know what? Okay, maybe this is just not the pick anymore.
Here's the thing about how Bobby doesn't care about what's happening on the field for his pick. This Ymir doesn't succeed very often. He's still going to it. It could be the best draft ever. It could be Hera, Erlang, Shen, Hachiman, Sobek, just a ton of gods that can't deal with the wall. He could get absolutely blown out, 0-6 in the early game. He's going to go to Ymir in the next game. I know it in my heart of hearts that Bobby is a stubborn fellow.
He's had games where that wall actually, you could go, okay, if they didn't get blown out there, that was a really hot wall. That was a really nice wall. Even against Ghost, he had some really nice walls. This is going to be the one where he goes, perfect wall, I got 8 alive. Never again.
Not even me, just my whole team. We all lost. I walled all 5. Maybe. But his fallback gods, I don't like at all. I mean, this man will lock in Fafnir, but we don't need to reopen that one.
Sure. I think my pick this week for this game is probably going to be SSG. we did sort of see Obey surging in the past couple weeks, I think, since the bye week especially, but last week didn't look very good or convincing, and I think SSG are maybe trying to prove something a little bit after losing to PK recently, so they're definitely not going to drop anything. So I think this is going to be SSG 2-0. Let's move on to the next set of the week, which is Ghost versus PK. I think I have to start with you on this one, Myflin. No, I don't. Zyrhoes, you're going first on this one.
Oh!
Ghost versus PK, who you got?
Ghost versus PK. That's an interesting one. I don't really know. The thing is, Ghost has their own playstyle. I don't always love their draft. I think the drafts could be way better at times, but like whatever draft they have, they play it really well. But I think PK, when they draft, they have like a reasoning behind the draft, and they really know what they want to do. I guess Ghost is the same, but I think PK is more about like the mid late game, like how do we win late game. I honestly think PK wins that. That's such a hard one because PK's been off as well, right? Like they haven't been playing for a while, so this is the first game back.
Yep.
Fred has been looking like an absolute monster the last couple of sets as well. I have to give this one to PK. 2-0 or 2-1? That's the question. I think Paul. The biggest thing. I think Paul versus Twig. I think Paul is 10 times the mid laner that Twig is. Every other role is kind of similar, I think. But I just think PK 2-1. I guess it's the safest bet.
Sure.
I can't go for 2-0. I think, but I think PK 2-1. But that could also be very wrong because like PBM is. I think PBM is the best support in the league, and I think it's such a beast. But like, I still think PK 2-1.
Sure. Myth, how about you? Ghost versus PK.
I gotta agree with the same line of thought that Zyrhoes has there, and it really does come down to Cuvo Fred for me. For a long time, we've considered this guy Adapting Junior. He's just a worse version of Adapting.
The
but
Kingslayer.
Recently, the Kingslayer, the up and coming Bram of the high wall, whatever you want to call him. But I think that the last time we saw Cuvo play a couple weeks back, this guy was an absolute beast, a man possessed. I thought some of the mechanical plays he was doing on the field might have even rivaled at times some of the things we're seeing from Sam for Soccer. So I think it really does come down to how well is he going to do coming out of this break. If he's able to bring that exact same energy that we saw last time, I think PK could win. If this game becomes split at all, if Ghost wins a single game in the set, they're going to win the entire set. But I am a man who loves upsets. I'm going to vote on the veterans here, the reigning world champions. So I have to go 2-0 PK.
Hey, okay. Frost, how about you? Ghost versus PK. I know you're a resident Ghost stan, so...
I think this is going to be the match to watch, honestly. With the same line of thinking from the prior ones, it's just coming down to, is Ghost going to play clean? Is this some sort of a sentimental match for them? Or do they want to force everything that the Knights have already? That's what separates this to me, is if it's going to be a 2-1 or a 2-0. Do Ghosts just want to win flat out? 2-0. Do they want to like push Paul to his limit? Do they want to see what Cuvo can do? Because you stated Twig being or Paul being 10 times the mid laner that Twig is, but I don't think Cuvo can deal with 4 junglers. They've had this weird composition where it really turns into Ghost gaming, like everyone except for Pandacat, because I guess Cupid can't really dive too well. Everyone except for Pandacat becomes a jungler. That's the playstyle against Knights, and I don't even think Cuvo can deal with that, seeing as he was the shining star in the other games where he doesn't even die, now to being completely focused out. I'm going to go for 2-0 Ghost, and I think it's going to be a brawl. I think they're both going to play kind of clean, kind of timid.
I mean, I love PK here, so I'm going to give it to PK 2-0. I hope everything goes well with them, especially coming off these sort of the week off. But sometimes that can be a good thing, maybe a bit of a mental reset as well. So I got PK winning this set. All right, let's move on to Space Station Gaming versus the Renegades. I think, Myflin, we're going to start with you on this one. Who you got in Space Station versus the Renegades?
Well, I'm going to preface this all by saying it's Space Station 2-0, but allow me to expand. Renegades is my least favorite team to watch. And I've been on record saying this before because this is a team, and I mean this wholeheartedly. Let me sit up straight. Renegades is a team that you can see it distinctly in their play on the field when their mental shatters. It comes to nothing. Occasionally, they will stop all proactive play. It seems like all 5 members agree, okay, we're going to lose this set, but let's drag it out as long as we possibly can. I'm going to sit at my back camps. Barracuda's hiding behind his tier 2 when the tier 1's still available, and then they don't go for anything. And it seems like it takes a while for the enemy team to respond to this shift in Renegade's play style. And then they start to group up around objectives. Renegades don't show up. They group up on the Phoenix to defend it. Renegades don't use a single ultimate. It just feels like it's very easy to see that this is a very emotional team. Again, smoke out my ass. I'm not sure what it's like behind the scenes. I've never been inside their comms. I can't speak to the individual players. But it does very much feels like Renegades is a team that can just straight up give up. We like to say that they're the counter punch team, but it feels like they're more the head weave team. They're back there waiting for the counter punch, but they never extend their arm. And I think if they could just evolve a little bit past that point, if they could just move a little bit forward, because they're able to make it to the late game, if they could just do something in the late game, they're going to be an absolute threat in the league. And recently, the shining star of Renegades has been Ben. He's been really standing out to me. He's been stepping up for his team. If they want to start playing through him, then I'll start having some confidence in this squad. But for right now, I don't think they even hold a candle to SSG.
Sure. Frost, how about you? SSG versus the Renegades.
I love the analogy of the head weaving. And with that, I think either Jake or Ven are winding up for a punch. There's also something just really inherently odd about Jake's playstyle that is just too hard to computate, hard to really predict, hard to schedule around it. For the lack of a better word, it's just the most American playstyle going into this EU like meta that they're going to go against. I think they could maybe whip one out, but it's also just kind of me wanting to see them take a game. I think it's going to be 2-0 Space Station.
Sure. Zyrhoes, let's wrap it up here with you. Space Station versus the Renegades.
I mean, obviously, Space Station are looking like the best team in the league right now. It's like they should win this, but but I think also the jungle matchup. I think Shario versus Laspra is kind of interesting because I think those two players. Obviously, I think Shario is probably better than Laspra, but I think like at a mechanical level, I think they're pretty similar. Like I don't think either of them are like the top of like being like a top super mechanical clean player, you know, but like. I don't know. And then you also have Renegades. You have Variety who's joining. Like he obviously probably still want to prove himself in that team. It's like he's been playing well and they've been kind of struggling a bit. And then you also have the Veneno factor where like he could play anything. He could play the Set. He could play the Chunga. Like what do we get, you know? Like is he going to be a good mid laner or like something troll? So I don't know. I think this is a game that Renegades could actually win. I don't think they will, but they could definitely do it, I think. But I would still give it... I guess I give it 2-1 Space Station. I think Renegades could actually no 2-1 Renegades. 2-1 Renegades.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Unless I don't think that, but like I think maybe there's a chance. There's a chance, I think, and I think if Renegades do win this set, I think they're gonna. Cause like Variety, I played with Variety a lot of years, and like he's a really smart player. Like he knows how to play the game, and like he's a good theory crafter, you know. So like. And it wasn't long ago since he joined this team, you know. It's like he could probably like maybe this team has to figure something out. I think 2-1 Renegades.
Sure.
For the boys.
For the boys. Man, unfortunately I'm not as confident in the Renegades as you are, Mr. Zyrhoes. I think it's gonna be Space Station here. You know, Frost always says that Sanguine is sort of like the younger brother to Space Station, but I kind of feel like I see that quite a bit with the way the Renegades kind of play. You know, in terms of like Ven being the one who picks up the Heras and the Chongas and some of these weird mid picks. And I feel like Lasbra and Cherry's God pulls kind of overlap quite a bit as well. So, you know, I think it's going to be a long set, but I think it's going to be Space Station who take it 2-1.
Veneno's going to have the perfect day where he only plays good gods. He's going to play the Hera. He's going to play like all the good gods. It's going to be easy piece for Renegades.
Then he's still on Renegades.
He's still on Renegades.
But then he's still on Renegades. Like you say that they're siblings, if anything, because I do think that sometimes, yes, they do play in that same vein.
Sure.
But this is like distant cousins.
Okay.
You got SSG Sanguine very closely related, but like SSG is obviously way more tenured. Renegades is just their cousins, way far off. Maybe twice removed. I don't know.
All right, Frost, let's stick with you on this one. Radiance versus Obey. Start us off. Who you got?
There's a lot of enthusiasm on the Obey boys. I think I enjoy that. They come into these so optimistic, but I think this one might be a bit beyond their league. And I think it's going to be Radiance 2-0, especially against the Sanguine game earlier. I don't think there's a chance that they lose both these sets against Sanguine and Obey. So Radiance is going to 2-0, at least this one, if not the other one.
Sure. Zyrhoes, how about you? Radiance versus Obey.
I think Radiance is going to be better now. Like, they've been struggling, but I think they're probably going to be getting better and better right now. And as for Obey, they have the support playing kind of troll picks, in my opinion. And they have Wolfie, which have been looking good on Raw, but nothing else really. Like, he'd been playing Persephone quite a bit, and it hasn't been looking that good. Like, I don't think Wolfie is a threat at all. Unless it's on the Raw. Like, obviously, I think the Raw is going to get outbanned. And then we have Wowie that did like 4,000 damage in a 25-minute game on ROM. So, like, I think the carries on Obey are just not good enough to compete. Like, I think this is an easy 2-0 for Radiance.
All right, Myth, bring us home here. Radiance versus Obey. Who you got?
Well, Zeros, I'm glad that you bring up Wolfie playing the Persephone and not looking too good on it, because that's a point that I like to make on the cast very often, especially about Obey, because I don't like seeing him on Emoji, I don't like seeing him on Persephone, because I don't think they're capable of playing those characters at all. But people argue with me, oh, Wolfie hit a couple of grasps of death in the late game. You can't hit a couple of grasps of death. You gotta hit all of them. You gotta hit the Bone Rush consistently. And I think that it's such a detriment to this team. But look, Radiance is backsliding. I think that's an undeniable fact right now. Obey, I've been pushing the narrative that they've been on the up, but it's more like they were on the up, they plateaued for about 3 weeks, they went on the up one set, then plateaued for another 6 weeks. So I think we're overdue for an up, and an up for Obey is a singular win. And I think against this backsliding Radiance, we could absolutely see it. Inbound in particular has been improving a lot, the most rapidly within the league. I think he would be the most improved player if I were to hand out a ribbon for that, but it might be because he had the most room to grow.
Sure.
That said, Obey, I'm going to go 2-0 here. If Obey loses a single game in the set, I think they lose the entire set. So I have to go 2-0 if I think Obey are going to win.
Oh, okay.
What's wrong with you, man?
He's only had one
how did you get hired at Hi-Res? Like,
yeah, the console ring, you know?
Sure.
That's what it is.
Last game of Week 12 is Sanguine. Oh, hold on. I did not give my prediction for Radiance versus Obey. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, especially with teams that are kind of in the middle of the pack now. I think where Radiance squarely is at this point in the season. I think I'm going to give it to Radiance 2-1. Like you said, Myflin, I think if Radiance win one game, they will probably take the set. It's going to be hard for Obey to come back. So I think Radiance will take it 2-1. All right, last set of Week 12. Finally, we're here. Sanguine versus United. I think we have to start with you, Zeros. Who you got here? Sanguine versus United.
Sanguine versus United. That's an interesting one, because like United had a lot of roster changes, obviously, with Gino and Baskin. Sanguine has not been looking that great lately. I think both of the teams lost the last games as well, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Who do I pick for that? That's a hard one, actually. Jarkor versus Baskin. Oh, I don't know, man. Jarkor versus Baskin, I think they're pretty similar. I think, if anything, I think Jarkor might be better than Baskin right now.
Agreed.
Jungle, Paniton versus Scream. That's the same. Like, both of them junglers, I feel like, are super similar. Where like they either have like they really pop off, they find a way, they know their picks, and they play really well, or they play something weird like Bastet or something not good, and like they feed, you know. So it's not that good. Mid laners, you have Hariwu and Shinto. I definitely give it to Shinto.
Yep.
Dual lane, you have Netroid and Jarkor against Gino and Snoopy. I definitely give it to Sanguine. Because of the dual lane mainly.
Sure.
I think it's gonna be dual lane diff, probably. Thing is, with Sanguine dual lane, I think Rongyu and Netroid is such good players, both of them. But I think Rongyu's God pool, especially, kind of holding. I think it's not holding the dual lane down, but I think it's holding the team down when it comes to team fights and that kind of stuff. But I still think they'll beat United 2-0 or 2-1. I don't know. I guess 2-1 is safer. I don't know. I think it's kind of close. 2-0. 2-0.
All right.
Sanguine.
2-0 for Sanguine from Zyrhoes here. Myth, how about you? Sanguine versus United.
This set is a really important heat check for E United, a team that I think a lot of the fans have huge expectations of, just because Baskin the GOAT, Wooney Kim coming into the league, the god of Smite, I guess some would like to call. But I just have not been impressed by the things that we can evaluate. The empirical data that we have on Baskin has not been necessarily impressive right now. So I think that I would favor out Sanguine in the solo lane. I think the only thing that E United have going for them potentially is out of the jungle, depending on which version of Panatom we get from Sanguine. And if Hurrywin plays Yanis, he's going to be the best Yanis in the league, or even the entire world, potentially. All good that'll do him. It's Yanis still, no matter what you do with it. So I think I have to give it over to Sanguine, because largely, due in fact to that duo lane diff, I really do think that Netrioid and Rongyu should be able to outshine what E United are bringing. If Rongyu decides to play a team fight oriented support, when he's playing gods like
he probably won't. He's gonna play like Mulan or fucking Horus or something.
Horus, Mulan, the garbage. If he plays those, I'll give it to E United. If he doesn't, if he plays something that's actually good for his team and plays to the strengths of Sanguine, which is their late game team fight, I think Sanguine can win. I'll give it to him 2-1.
Think about this one as well. You know, Hurrywin likes Janus, and Panatom's favorite god is probably Susanna, right? Like, Susanna has a sick matchup into Janus.
It is.
Is really good, which might make Hurrywin not play Yanis. But how Sanguine have been playing recently, I wouldn't be surprised if Hurrywin gets away with getting Persephone, and he's capable of playing that god, certainly. So I think it really does come down to the duo lane if we're going to talk about just what we can really accurately evaluate. And as far as duo lanes go, I think Sanguine's is much better.
Yeah. You said Sanguine 2-0?
2-1.
2-1, okay. Frost, how about you? Sanguine versus United.
Well, what we can accurately evaluate is that this United roster has already beaten this Sanguine roster, and it did come down to a lot of PvEing with the Yanis. It's just something about the Sanguine playstyle of always being together. It doesn't go well against a Hurrywin team, because they're just all over the map way too fast, ganging up on one person or another. I think this is the comfort match for United. I think this is something that they're okay with. They're not psyched out about. They're actually ready for it. Probably even whip out some new stuff or just try to go back for that PvE style. I think it'll be 2-0. And the Sanguine, I've also scheduled earlier for a loss to Radiance. So if that comes through, I think their mental is just going to be down in the dumps. 2-0 United.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Frost said there about United. The other thing that I'm looking into is I think we're sort of on like 2 or 3 weeks now since the roster change. And I think maybe the synergy is starting to build up with this United team. I think United is probably going to win this set. I think I'll give it to them 2-1. I think that rounds out week 12 for us. And since I've got both of you guys here, our wonderful guest analysts, I think maybe we'll just open up the floor to a general discussion about all things Smite Pro League, or just Smite in general. You know, we can talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if you guys want to, because I know we all saw the crazy battle pass. But you know, I'll just open up the floor to you guys. What's on your mind? What do you want to rant or rave about? The soapbox. You know, the time is yours. You know, go ahead.
I can start off with Fafnir. How dare you? How dare you?
Look, how often does Fafnir jump in, go into the dragon form, and then immediately die the second he's available to be hit, or he goes in inside the dragon form, misses his jump because it's an incredibly hard to land skill shot, and then die? I think that Fafnir and the meta in general right now
is not the god man. It's the players. It's not the god man. It's the players.
In the world, we're picking them to play.
Yeah, but too bad. SPL, there's not good enough support players, I guess. Unlucky for the league.
And the 2 people playing Faf aren't the best supports in the league, to be fair. But I think that support is a role right now where you need to generate pressure. That's what we're seeing right now, is that support needs
Faf
to generate pressure.
pretty good at that. His fucking hammer does 100 base damage.
Is he better than Herc or Mulan or even the Horus at generating pressure?
Herc is bad.
It's bad? I can't even right now.
Hercules is kind of bad.
Herc is good for the first 10 minutes of the game.
The first 10 minutes of the game are the most important in half of these games.
No, it's the last 40 minutes. Yeah. Whenever the Titan goes down, that's the most important minute of the game, and Herc doesn't do well there.
Any actual game that matters will always go late game. Like, it's only in SPL and scrims where games lost short, that's where herc is OP. Early pressure is OP in scrims, man. That's how it is.
Speaking
Fafnir
of speaking of these short games, I feel like maybe in the past 3 weeks, more so than other times during this season, the games have been quicker.
Oh, it's just matchups, honestly.
You think it's just matchups?
It is.
Yeah.
It's been some tough matchups recently.
Sure.
It wasn't meta or anything. It was just a really unfortunate. It was like a group seeding stage.
Yeah.
We just heard the third phase of the round robin, so all the teams are playing against each other again. So we're going to see those top versus bottom matchups, which I think is speeding it up a little bit.
Okay.
But man, herc is bad. I can't believe that.
No, he's not bad. He's not bad. He's not bad. I'll take it back. He's not bad, but like he's not that great.
Okay. All right.
He's
fair enough.
He's all right.
He falls
He's
off
all right.
hard.
The thing is, if you're a sick herc player, sure, you have PBM and a roar. I think those are the only players on
still
SPL.
cringe
They're like
watching
good
those
enough.
two, though.
But even when they play it, if they take it late game, like if I'm playing a carry and I'm playing as a herc support late game, I'm like, fuck yeah, like it's the easiest thing ever.
But like a good herc won't let you get the late game, and I think that's something that Fafnir
yeah, but his
capable of doing.
backline. I have my boy Johnny, I have my boy Johnny that plays Kali and kills everyone.
King.
And Julio, yeah. They will just kill everyone. Well, as long as I survive, we're good, But like they have no appeal for the enemy team because they have a herc support, so.
But we don't get to see the Kalis and the Bakasuras and the Alquongs and the SPL.
Shario plays
so.
Kali,
Yeah,
Not
he does
recently. Not recently,
occasionally.
though. I think it's
once
been
in a blue moon.
Wait, he got shredded recently too. It was against it was Ghost, whoever they played. They had a herc on the other team, and I said once Sam gets his hands on that herc, because he has the only toxic blade on the whole team, he's dead. And as soon as Sam started walking at him, it was over.
Fair enough. There are some counter matchups into herc, but I think that just the top end potential of what Hercules can bring is so absolutely valuable. The threat of we might just win out of our duo lane and have Hercules rotate in the mid at level 5 is
the meta is not like that right now, though. Like you don't snowball out of duo lane anymore, like because
not right now.
You go from purple to harpy, right? Sure, the herc can go from his purple and then try to invade your harpy to like slow you down, but you can still do the harpy and hog it, right? Because he can't hog it, so you'll always get it anyway. He can poke you a bit, but I feel like it doesn't matter if you have the lowest pressure duo lane in the whole world, you still make it through, And then like, what do I rather have on my team? A Yemoya, a Sobek, a Fafnir, or a Hercules? Pretty simple answer for me. But...
Yemoja and Sobek, yes. Fafnir, no. Hercules, yes.
Okay, man.
I think in a bullhead meta, herc is definitely one of those like pushes W harder than the rest. But once you get to the meta where you're willing to take just a step back, not butt heads the entire time, he just kind of does that cartoony slip on through, grab the football and run with it.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you still think set solo is the most busted thing? I know that was something that you
I think this is directed at Zyrhoes.
About Zyrhoes.
And me?
Yeah.
Set solo is dog shit, man. What do you say?
He said the thing.
Last year. Oh, there's a clip of that. If you're talking about last year, is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. PK is back last year in PK was kind of weird, yeah, because like every team I've ever been on, like I've been the most like controlling force when it comes to draft and stuff. But in that team, there's like Death Walker is like a really like he wanna whatever he wanna do, And then you have Milsey and Adapt. Everyone in that team were very strong, opinionated when it came to draft, But I was always Set was kind of newly released.
Yeah.
And like, I'd never seen a good set performance in jungle ever. In scrims, in ranked, nowhere. But I've seen set solos just pumping, like hard carrying. And Deathwalker were playing it in scrims, and he was hard carrying. He was literally getting quarter kills. I'm not sure if he got pentakills, but like he was hard carrying on this pick. And then when that's from the clip, when I'm like, why are we playing set jungle? It's dog shit. Set solo OP. Like I remember the clip because like we played it in scrims, and like I just like. At the day, I was like, why are we playing set jungle? And they were like, yeah, Adapting was like, I want to play it. And I was like, give it to Deathwalker, man. He's gonna pump. But then we decided, but we played it jungle and it sucked. And I got, I know going into that game that we have a bad draft. Like, unless, if it doesn't turn out to be a bad draft, if you pop, but like it was a bad draft. Like, he didn't do anything the whole game. Like, it's just a shit pick in jungle, I thought. And I think I was right. And I was just furious. Like, why are they not listening to me?
Sure.
Do you think that could be a general thing with Radiance. I'd say they're all pretty opinionated about their drafts. Could that be an issue as to why it kind of takes them quite a few weeks to gather steam after the initial, like, all right, we're going to stomp everybody because we're just awesome like that, and then they kind of get figured out?
I have no idea about Radiance right now. Like, Adapting has opinions, but like he's not like super like he's kind of open to play stuff. But I think Aurora, I would think, because I always thought Aurora as one of like the big brains of Smite. I think Aurora and PBM especially for me has always been like these players that can, like, if you have one of them on your team, it's going to be a good team no matter what the players are, because they're really smart about how to think about the game and like how to play the game. But like I don't know about Radiance right now. I can't talk on it because like I have no idea. I don't know how Benji works in the team. I don't know how Cyclone works in the team. I don't know how Big Man Things works in the team. Like for me, I think I'm kind of similar to I want to play the game my way because I feel like I always know the best way to play the game. And like if we don't do that, I become mentally unstable and I feed my brains out. But it's just like I can't talk on Radiance right now. I have no idea, like, because I've only played with Adapting, right? So like, I don't know any of the other players how they play or what they want to do, but I don't know, man.
Sure enough, I'll know. I'm keen to know. You've already said Chang'e and Anubis are like the worst characters mid.
Yes.
Who else is there? And have they been played by somebody? At what pick from an SPL team made you go, what is this? They're gambling on some offshore site. They're throwing this for sure.
I mean, for me, I've always have like, when it comes to me playing mid, it's interesting that this SPL thing turned into what I think. I like it. I'm taking over the show.
Hey, I mean, you're a special guest.
Yeah. But like for mid in general, right? You play mid lane.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to do damage from range in most part, depending on the comp, obviously. You have to be able to kill tanks, I think, unless you're playing Morrigan, because then you stealth behind the tanks, you ignore the tanks and kill the backline, right? And then you can have a dive comp, same with Janus, Jor mid, you dive the backline, right? But if you don't play these characters, you have to kill the tanks before you can hit the backline. And I feel like Chang'e is not good at killing tanks. She has short range to kill tanks, so she's always going to be in a pretty vulnerable position when she's doing damage to the tanks, right? Unless you go blink on her, same with Hebo. So like that's why I don't like those calls, like too short range and not enough damage on tanks. That's why I don't think they're good.
What do you think of Vulcan, Zeros?
I think if you're the best Vulcan player in the world,
so pretty prime.
Yeah. No, I mean he used to be. I don't know if he's anymore. But like,
sure.
Snoopy.
If you had the cleanest mechanics there is, you could probably make him work, maybe. But then again, he has a lot of struggles.
He's so bad, I think.
He gets kind of messed up at cripples. He gets messed up by like he has no CC immunity in his kit. So you can drop the Ares, for example. You get hit by one Ares chain, you're messed up. But then again, if you have like Doom Orb, Karen's Coin, full stack Karen's Coin, you're moving it fast. Like you can play. He does a lot of damage, but like it's just not safe enough, I think.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree with what Paul said on it, in that it's like if you get hit by any CC as Vulcan and you survive, the enemy team is probably already losing or misplaying.
Yeah.
So Vulcan is one of the easiest to exploit mid laners in the game, coming from a jungle perspective at least. Which is why I was surprised we saw it get picked up exactly once in the SPL and not since then. And I think I'm pretty happy about that.
Sure.
Paul was on a Vulcan tear last year. I remember.
Was.
Like
yeah, I
had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think it was the first phase of last year. He played Vulcan literally every game, every scrim we did against him because we always banned Hell and Hebo. He used to play Vulcan every single game. I don't know what he had with Vulcan, but I think he was like 100-0 on Vulcan in duel or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good God.
Yeah, so he probably was the best Vulcan in the world, but like it wasn't enough. So
is his Hell that nasty? Everyone has to ban it all the time.
His Hell is nasty.
His Hell is really good, yeah.
Oh my god!
It's the early pressure. You think of Hell as this late game powerhouse, but Paul's gonna walk at you at level 3 and do 60% of your health bar, and he just needs a jungler to breathe on you to finish you off.
Nox ultimate on the dark stance on his one.
Yep, the burst out.
That's the thing with Hell, right? Like he's so good at Hell, Paul, yeah. But I don't think Hell is particularly OP. Like she is good, like early mid game. If she's ahead, especially, she one shots people. Like if you get hit by the Dark 2 and then like the rest of the free abilities, you die. But late game, as I said, like she's not that great at killing tanks, and like she can't really dive backline either. She has to get through the tanks, and she doesn't have like great range, like you can use your dark one and your light one, but like late game she's not that great. Like she has to sustain, obviously, but like it's just like sustain goals in general. Like people are not used to play against it, because like there's not that many people playing it. So I think like people like don't know how to play against the playstyle, and then it's the early pressure as well. Like if you do get behind early against, it's always a gamble. If you do get behind early against a Hell early game, it's very hard to come back. So like it's like always a gamble. But yeah.
Well, where do you guys think the new Loki's going to fit, if he is going to? There's 4 characters that haven't been played yet. Is he going to be? Is he going to be the like 4th again and 5th, or is it just
new Loki? I've only got the chance to play him once since he's hit actual release. I got to play test him a little bit. He's in a bad spot right now. I think that Loki is legitimately a worse god after this rework, because they made him less frustrating to play against. Your 3, your burst damage, all of it is way less. If you want to play him inside solo lane, you shouldn't, because his 2 doesn't even clear waves. His ultimate is much better. But they added
whoa! What? His ultimate is better
for team fight. He could AoE. You could 2v1 people with the Loki ultimate. You can find it in those situations. But the pre-fire animation that they added to it, you can now get canceled out of the ultimate very early on, which is a huge frustration point for Loki players. The 3 is some of the most unconfirmable damage you can find.
Also true.
The most consistent damage you're going to get is from your Vanish, and you already had that before, so your burst damage is much more lacking in a meta where you need a god like Loki to be able to one-shot people. It doesn't really work. I think I just prefer to have a Morgan. I think Morgan does Loki better than Loki does.
Sure, but like old Loki, if you got ulted by old Loki and you didn't have beads, you'd die.
Yeah,
thing is, now you can get ulted by Loki, and if you don't have beads, you can just Aegis.
Or you can just jump out of it, right?
Yeah.
No, wait, it's triple.
It's a triple. It's triple. Thing is, you can survive with beads or Aegis. If you have beads, it depends. If you have a dash, if you play tough and you get ulted and you beads and dash, you still get hit. But if you play Merlin, you can beats and dash and don't get hit. But like, thing is, he gets super countered by relics. I think Loki is so much worse now.
He's way worse.
The only way he'll be viable is because like he probably has pretty decent jungle clear now, right?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, maybe he has pressure early game. I don't know. So like maybe
I don't think it's that good.
Not more so than a Raven. Like his clear is like it's decent,
average,
but it's
very
not.
average.
It's not good.
Okay. I mean, that's the only way. Like if he has decent like. Like his late, he loses pretty much any 1-on-1, I guess, any jungler in the game. So like,
agreed.
I will say, go ahead.
Are getting too late. Like the games are getting too late now. That too is disgusting. The
2 is great in a team fight. I'll agree with that. But you need 4 procs on a priority target to find the blind, and it's so hard to do. Especially in late game team fights when everyone's zooming because movement speed's so easy to find in a build.
Yeah, and you need to place it where a lot of people are as well. Like if you're playing a jungler, you're usually flanking. You don't really want to be like placing abilities in the middle of a team fight. You want to like find a 1-on-1 against the enemy jungler or like flank the backline. It's like I don't know. I don't think it'll be that great. But
I think the 2 could be buffed a little bit because I'm pretty sure. You only get like the behind you activation once it's
on 4.
On 4. I feel like it should happen earlier, and I think that would make his clear a lot better.
That'd be
in
terrifying.
The jungle, like if you get 2 procs of the 2, you should start being able to do the behind you from the front. Like I don't know,
2 procs might be too much.
Maybe too much. Maybe, but like something like that, I feel like could make him feel more impactful.
My pitch for Loki would be 3 procs on the 2, speed up the flurry animation by 10%, and the ultimate animation by 10%. I want him swinging 10% faster. I want to be out of that quickly. And get this is how we break Loki. This is how we break him. I've been thinking about it all the time. This is how we break him. Give the flurry in hand procs. I want
give the flurry in hand procs. Yes, do that.
Now we're break. Now Loki's busted. Let's get it. If he's got to sit in front of you in a team fight, it's so wild to me, right? Old Loki, it made sense. You stealth in, use your 3, you hit someone once, you run away because you're in stealth. You want to come out there. Now I stealth in, auto attack you, and stand in front of your face and swing my arms like this for an hour. Like, what am I doing, dude? I'm gonna hit my Robin. Chemo hits me. Like I don't know. It just feels weird to play him. He's so much more counterable.
He's like a Daye without a CC, without a ult that you can actually get out of the combo,
Yes.
I feel like. And I don't even know if his burst damage is better than Dai. Probably isn't.
It's not. You need
Yeah,
Hydras to even be close.
I think Dai
to
like
dodging,
blink one auto like
Blink
her
one-
combo and then
one
go
shot
into
to
the
mage.
pillar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Dai probably has the better burst damage, and she can also like just stall the team fight
Sure.
by going up to the pillar.
I think
Or
the
at least
only
burn
way
like 4 people's beads.
I think the only way the damage is comparable is if you have Hydras. That's like the only way I've been able to.
You have to auto attack 3 cancel.
Yeah, auto attack
You're
3
just doing it
cancel,
for the
or
Hydra
like
procs.
auto attack like 2 cancels and things like that. It just,
It don't feel great.
it don't feel
Yeah,
great.
but her.
I think he's a worse character overall, and they were just trying to address the whole issue of the Smite community is not that good at dealing with the Loki.
Any
Sure.
stealth, it's a frustration point of a stealth character. Old Loki's not even half as annoying as getting one shot by a Morgan. It's the worst feeling on the planet. You get hit by the Dark Omen, or just the stun into Dark Omen into Polynomicon. If you miraculously survive that situation, if you're a tank, maybe she turns into, I don't know, Erlang Shen, Cthulhu, something like that. All of a sudden, the one-shot mage is a paragon of defense and CC in the middle of your team fight. So frustrating. Which is why I'm surprised we don't see her as often anymore. Renegades is a team that picks her
Probably
up.
the
though.
bugs.
It might
Listen
be.
to this, yeah. I have a good thing that I've always been saying about old Loki before the remake. It was the most boring god in the game to play against,
Agreed.
and it was also the most boring god to have on your team.
Mhm.
Like it was not fun to play with, and it was not fun to play against. At least Morrigan, it's not boring to play with,
Sure.
in my opinion.
Sure.
It's not boring to
That's what
play
I mean.
with.
So like Morrigan at least has that. So, like as a teammate of Morrigan, you kind of enjoy. Like, oh, if she's doing well, hell yeah, man. You know. But like if you're Loki, it's just split pushing and doing nothing. You know, it's boring. So I think Loki definitely. I think Anubis has taken Loki's spot now. With like, I hate having Anubis on my team, and I hate playing against Anubis.
Agreed.
I think Anubis is
100%.
the new Loki, in my opinion.
It's between. I hate having Ymir's on my team, but I don't hate playing against Ymir's because this is it. The Ymir's the bot of the Smite community. You can look at a Ymir. If Ymir gets locked in my game and I look up and it's not Polar Bear Mike, I immediately assume that you're the worst player to ever grace the battleground of the gods.
I feel
And
that way
usually I'm
about
just
Giannis.
right. Giannis too. I mean, but like Giannis.
You can't say Janus. What?
No,
Janus?
he's really good. He's really good. It's just the
You
players.
have to be really good at him.
Yeah, the people. who pick
Yeah,
Giannis,
sure, but like it's not like
oh.
every game where it's like I have a Janus on my team. Oh no! But old Loki was literally you have a
Yes.
Loki on your team. You're like,
Yeah.
fuck, man. And there's a Loki on the enemy team, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But you're
you
not
know,
jungler
If you have
heroes.
if there's a Loki on the enemy team, and you have a really bad solo laner, and he gets soloed early by the enemy Loki, you know the game is probably over.
His soloing potential is terrible. Yeah.
But like, here's the thing about Yanis, in ranked in particular, I blink in, I'm Robin, I root him, I hit him with the 1. The enemy mid laner is now 10% health. My smooth brain, egghead Yanis behind me throws out the unstable vortex and like hits them in the center, like misses them in the center. I'm like, sick dude. Or I go in, I root him,
Sick
and
dude.
smooth brain Yanis drops a portal at his feet, so I miss my Prana onslaught. And I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Or he misses the wave.
Hey,
Where's
what
Miss
kind of
Wave, dude?
MMR are you playing at, bro? Like, are you like?
This is just
I'm
an
a
A.
Masters. I'm a Masters. All right. 2500
you're a Master,
MMR,
okay.
not that good,
Zap,
though.
Zap's got a
just
couple
an A.
rules for the beginning of a new ranked split. It's pass
Ban
bans
Giannis.
whenever you can and ban Giannis from your own team. Those are his
Yes.
rules.
Yanis is
really?
so
for,
frustrating.
for new ranked splits, he likes to pass bans because he just wants people to play stuff for the most part. And then, you know, someone will play Giannis on his team, and after that game, he's always banning Giannis from his own team for the rest of the stream. So
If I out Elo Hurry win, I'm banning Yanis. Like I don't care who you are. I want to play with that character.
Because there's no pressure early. They just run
Zero.
away all the time. Go
Jan-
for the farm. and
Janus
then-
doesn't have he is OP clear on the first
He
wave.
has OP
He's
clear, but
not
then you
bad
steal
early
my own
game.
back camps. You're stealing my farm as the jungler. I gotta
Yeah,
win.
sure, but that's good. The thing is, if the Janus decides to steal your farm, it's probably because he thinks that okay, this jungler not that great. Maybe I take it in my own hands, you know.
It's better than his mid, I'll tell you that, though.
No, Yanis is dirt, dude. Dirt
I
under my
think it's
feet.
just Giannis players.
Definitely
Yeah,
not.
you have to be fearless.
I
for
don't mind
Giannis.
Janus at all. I don't mind Janus at all. I don't like playing against it, but I don't mind it on my team either.
You get to play an EU,
I mean,
though.
if it's a
You're
shit
usually
player,
Yanis, right?
if it's a shit player, sure, but like, I mean, let's go for any god. Let's go for any god.
I think
If
Fair
I
enough.
I
have
think
a
what
shit
I think,
Sobek on my team, I'm not gonna. enjoy
But
it.
at least he's playing Sobek. You know,
Yeah.
you hit one
Yeah,
player,
he's
actually.
fucking plucking in and like just dying. You know, I hate it.
Artemis players are also smooth brain, man. They
And
all think
Artemis is
they're
just
sick.
like the worst god in the
I
game.
think
So
the thing that pisses me off about Giannis is that sometimes we win, and I feel so undeserved because they just go for a Hail Mary, snipe maybe 2 of the carries in the back, and we win off that. And I had a miserable 45 minutes building up to that.
And he's like 2-8 now because those 2 kills.
Yeah,
he just
those
got.
are
He
his
thinks
only
he's
kills.
sick, dude. He thinks he's so sick for it. They're not even on wards, bro. He didn't see those people, but he got the kills. He's typing in the chat. Oh, I'm so sick, Myflin. You mad still? Lol. I'm so mad. You made the first 40 minutes trash. Oh my god.
Do you think they're gonna shake up the meta in any way, like they do, like minor patches before playoffs and worlds? I know last
Definitely
year that
gonna
pissed
be.
off people.
There's gonna be some shakeups. I'm
definitely
pretty sure.
something. I think. Yeah. I don't know what they're gonna. I hope Lotus Crown gets nerfed to the ground. I hate that item.
Lotus Crown is so cringe.
It's
so
so
cringe.
it's so OP. Thing is, Lotus Crown makes Yemoya OP. It makes her better than she already is.
Yeah.
It makes Raw OP, in my opinion.
Yep.
And like any god that can kind of build it, like you don't really want to
Hell,
build something
Aphrodite, like it still makes them so
Nah,
annoying.
I think it's mainly that item is mainly for Raw and Yemoya. I think after you don't build it that much
And
because like
Sobek.
it kind of screws over.
And Sobek? What?
I mean, you could probably build a Sobek and it wouldn't even be too bad. I hope Lotus Crown gets just ruined.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say that there's likely going to be at least a small meta shift up going into it, but I think that Season 8 is going to be very exciting. If you're a Smite fan, it's a good time to be paying attention as we gear up for that.
Yeah, I've been.
How much did Hinderman pay you to say that?
Hold on. I've been-
He
All
might
of
be
it.
mad that I said it.
Here's what I'll say. I've been watching the Duke Sloth data mining videos, and there's some. I hear we're getting our starter items back. Deathstone coming back. Bluestone
Yeah,
coming
don't
back.
trust everything you see on the internet. That's all I'll say.
I'm saying
As
this.
long as I
Those
can
are
buy
the
more than
rumors.
one.
And if those rumors are true, yeah, exactly. Give me War Flag. I love me some War Flag. Let me play War Flag
God.
more.
Dude, bring Bluestone back, dude.
Remove Warrior Blessing from the game. There can actually be a skill cap in the solo lane. It's solo lane matter right now. Like anyone can play solo. It's literally zero skill, man. It's
Talk
like-
about zero skill. Stone Gaia removes the skill of Soul Lane. You
yeah,
just sit there
sure.
and
I
heal.
mean, all those items, like, just remove them from the game, man. Like, back in the days when there's Death Toll and Bluestone in Soul Lane, there was,
Loved it.
boom, there was like,
But
you
that
know?
was the 2-1-2 meta too, because the jungler would just sit there because you could
no,
actually
but
get kills.
even if it was a one-on-one, like, you had to know exactly
Yeah.
what to do, like,
Sure.
how to kite the creeps, like, how to
was fun.
trade, like, you need to know your matchup. Now you have Warrior's Blessing. Sure, it matters now, but it doesn't matter as much.
And then the second you get Stone Gaia, nothing matters.
Some
You're
people don't want to
ungankable
get
and
soloed.
unkillable.
Getting sold feels bad for the average player.
Yeah, well, they should be soloing then.
Be
huh?
better, right?
Yeah.
That's the that's Biff's
Yeah,
advice.
get good.
Oh,
Get good.
They would never dare. They'd never dare.
Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Huge thanks to our special guests, Zyrhoes and Myflin. Be sure to catch us next week on Smite Game at the same time, that is 3 p.m. Eastern, and to check out our YouTube, where you can catch extended cuts of my discussion with these analysts and extended cuts of my interviews with pro players. If you have any ideas for future guests that you would want to see on the show, please don't hesitate to DM me on Twitter at APAM2 or at APAM Productions. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you guys next week.